Just as Yin Jiao was struggling to come up with an excuse to look for Gu Jiugu, she suddenly heard that the palace would be holding a spring banquet. Spring was the busiest time for the daughters of distinguished families. In years past, the female members of the families would like to host banquets, write poetry, or admire and paint flowers. Not even the palace's imperial concubines were the exception. This year's spring banquet was different. His Majesty himself was hosting it and had invited Sun Qi as a guest. It seemed that Emperor Ning intended to curry favor with this deity of medicine. Master, there will definitely be all kinds of foods that can't be found at the banquet. Just go and take a look. Sun Qi did not like places with large numbers of people. When he first heard that the palace would be holding a banquet, his first reaction was to refuse. Hearing Yu Fu say that there would be delicious foods, he swallowed the refusal. Then I might as well go into the palace to take a look. After taking a nap on the sedan, Sun Qi found after the sedan was lowered that he was not outside the palace. Yu Fu and the others from Marquis Gu's manor were not with him. The eunuch who was accompanying him said, "Lord Deity of Medicine, for the sake of showing how much you are valued, your sedan was brought directly into the palace. As for Lord Marquis Gu and the others, they stopped outside the palace gates and will only be able to come in later. Please come and rest in Qingyuan Palace for now. His Majesty is respectfully waiting for you inside." In any case, Gu Huaijiang is a marquis, yet he can't even enter the palace on a sedan. Yu Fu has already been granted the title of princess, yet she also needs to get off her sedan outside the palace. Is this how your Easternling thanks me? The eunuchs bowed in fear, terrified of angering him. They all knew that this deity of medicine had a short temper and would not give face to anyone. Not only did he have Gu Huaijiang kneel to beg for help, but he also dared to refer to Emperor Ning as Old Emperor in front of the civil and military officials. If he was angered, it was possible that they would lose their little lives. Lord Deity of Medicine, please calm down. It's not like that. Lord Marquis Gu received His Majesty's permission long ago to enter the palace on a sedan. Princess has even more right to this, but they don't want to. That's why they stopped outside of the palace. Gu Huaijiang had always been cautious. Occupying a lofty position would attract a lot of attention, and Yu Fu naturally followed him. As for Sun Qi, he took a nap on the sedan and did not notice this in his drowsiness. He flicked his sleeve. "All right, since that's the case, I'll head to Qingyuan Palace first." Along the way, the scenery of the palace was beautiful and magnificent. The previous time, Sun Qi had been in a hurry and did not have time to look. Taking a look today, he found that Easternling's architecture had a uniqueness to it. The capital, Linen, belonged to Jiangnan. This was a place with white walls and black roof tiles. The roof tiles in the palace were tightly packed like scales on a fish, making it vaguely look as if it was an ink and brush painting. He faintly admired the architecture and paused to look for a little longer. "Greetings, Your Highness the eldest prince." A young person in an official robe appeared ahead in the long corridor, and the eunuchs to the side stopped to pay their respects. The young person arrived in front of him and performed a salute. "Greetings, Lord Deity of Medicine." Sun Qi slightly nodded, "Eldest Prince." He did not have much of an impression of the eldest prince. He recalled that it was the second prince or someone like that who had come to Marquis Gu's manor and knelt to invite him into the palace to treat the emperor. Outside Emperor Ning's palace after the treatment, the eldest prince and the second prince came up together to give their thanks. It was only then that he gained a bit of an impression of the eldest prince. "Will Lord Deity of Medicine be going to see Father Emperor?" "I will lead the way. You may all retreat." The eldest prince dismissed everyone and personally led Sun Qi to Qingyuan Palace. Seeing that he seemed a little interested in the architecture, thus he personally explained it to Sun Qi for some reason. Once the eldest prince arrived, he was no longer in the mood to look at the architecture. Eldest Prince, if you have something to say, just say it directly. I am not too familiar with the roundabout ways that you people of high position speak. Sun Qi was very direct, not giving him any wiggle room. The eldest prince was startled and very quickly said with a smile, "In truth, there's nothing really. I was just thankful to Lord Deity of Medicine and wanted to express that gratitude." Is that really the case? It is indeed. Sun Qi did not care if this was true or not and simply said, "If eldest prince has the heart to do this sort of thing, it would be better to have some people paint some paintings of the palace for me. I like looking at them." A look of joy immediately appeared on the eldest prince's face. How difficult could that be? "I will immediately have someone paint one and send it to you at Marquis Gu's manor in a few days." "Then many thanks, eldest prince." Sun Qi continued to walk forward. While walking, he looked at the various buildings. He was particularly interested in the roof tiles. The eldest prince secretly observed his expressions from the side but did not notice anything strange. It seemed that he did not know that he was behind Emperor Ning's poisoning and did not intend to bring it up, otherwise, he would not have given him the chance to get close. Thinking about it like this, he felt at ease. "Lord Deity of Medicine, we have arrived at Qingyuan Palace. Most of the court officials should have arrived, so I will be going to the front to take care of them and cannot accompany you. This way, please." Sun Qi nodded to him in a good mood, then quickly disappeared from before his eyes. Even though the eldest prince had seen him move so quickly before, seeing it from such a short distance still gave him a shock. After the shock wore off, the corners of his lips crooked up, as he left feeling satisfied. Sun Qi swaggered into Qingyuan Palace and dusted off his broad sleeves. Eunuch Gao came out to receive him, saying with a smile, "Deity of Medicine truly is surrounded in a divine aura. You are always so spotless. Could it be that even dirt knows that a deity must not be approached?" Sun Qi snorted, "Spotless? I nearly got dirty just outside." Eunuch Gao could only smile and agree, "Yes, yes, yes, this servant will immediately go and order for the corridor to be cleaned and ensure that it is spotless." After saying this, he said to his subordinates, "Did you not hear what Deity of Medicine said? Quickly go and clean up." The eunuchs exited in single file, neither daring to go against Eunuch Gao's instructions nor daring to neglect Sun Qi in the slightest. When Sun Qi stepped into the palace, Emperor Ning was seated on a sofa drinking tea. Upon seeing him, he hastily stood up. "Deity of Medicine, please come and sit." He was rather polite, standing up himself to receive him. Sun Qi walked over and sat across from him. "Your Majesty has been courteous." Emperor Ning cheerfully brought the pastries on the table over to him, hearing that Deity of Medicine likes food, so we had some pastries prepared for you. Do you like them? Sun Qi's gaze landed on the table. His white eyebrows quivered slightly, and a faint smile appeared. He reached out and picked up a pastry without knowing what type it was and took a bite before frowning. This was good, there was meat inside. Emperor Ning observed his expressions from the side. Seeing that he seemed satisfied, he gained a bit more conviction in what he was about to say. "Deity of Medicine, we wish to venerate you as a teacher of the country. What do you think of it?" "No need, I have never gotten involved in the court affairs of the three countries. Rather, being conferred a title would be a burden." Sun Qi ate while frankly refusing the offer. It seemed that this was not his first time refusing such a thing, as he had done it so smoothly. Emperor Ning was a little disappointed, but Deity of Medicine did save our life. If no additional reward is given, it might make our Easternling look stingy. Being conferred a court title is not a good thing to me. There's no need for your Majesty to consider such a thing. Emperor Ning was expressing his kindness, so Sun Qi was a little embarrassed after declining, otherwise, he would have gotten annoyed much sooner. Emperor Ning tested the waters and said, "All right, since that's the case, we will thank Deity of Medicine from a different angle. We will personally sanction the marriage between Yu Fu and Marquis Gu's heir." What does Deity of Medicine think? Humph. Sun Qi held his throat and coughed a few times. A piece of pastry that had not yet been swallowed was caught in his throat, and it finally went down after coughing for quite some time. He was completely exasperated. What sort of thanks is that? I still haven't agreed to it. How can your Easternling just do as it pleases? But we heard that Yu Fu likes her eldest brother Shu Bai the most, so why does Deity of Medicine not agree? Sun Qi hollered, Yu Fu is only 13 years old. What is the rush? If you worked hard to raise a daughter, would you be willing to let them just marry someone? Would he? He really would. Emperor Ning smiled bitterly and said, we really would be willing. We would be all too eager for that to happen. Unfortunately, Shu Bai does not like our Princess Danyang. He only likes Yu Fu. Even if we wanted it to happen, it can't. Sun Qi wore a doubtful expression. It seemed that he did not feel that Gu Shu Bai was particularly great. Is that brat from the Gu family really that popular? Of course. Even our princess born of the Empress likes him. How many girls in the capital around that age don't like him? Deity of Medicine, Shu Bai is already 21. If their engagement remains in question, he will be stolen away by someone else. Sun Qi nearly leaped up from his seat. Who dares? Who would dare to steal away Yu Fu's man? They must be tired of living. Emperor Ning saw that there was progress and struck while the iron was hot, saying, there are plenty. Has Deity of Medicine not heard? In the past, the Lu family had a young miss who wanted to steal him away, even causing a commotion at our banquet. Fortunately, she did not hurt Yu Fu. What? She even dared to hurt Yu Fu. Sun Qi was so mad that his eyebrows and beard were trembling. How can that be accepted? Our Yu Fu is only 13 years old. How could she be able to fight off the older girls? That's why we were wanting to set it now to keep others with wicked intentions from hurting Yu Fu. What do you think of this? Since it was concerning Yu Fu's safety, Sun Qi finally calmed down and began thinking about Emperor Ning's words. It was often said that petty people were hard to defend against. Yu Fu did not have the physical abilities that he had. In fact, she did not really know any martial arts at all. If someone wanted to hurt her, it would be all too easy. That boy Gu Shu Bai was indeed not bad. It was just that he could not agree too quickly in front of Emperor Ning. Emperor Ning could tell that he did not dislike Gu Shu Bai, thus he patiently guided the discussion. Actually, if you think about it, all girls will need to get married when they grow up, and is there a better young man out there than Shu Bai? How about this, set the engagement first, and it will just be an engagement. If Deity of Medicine is truly dissatisfied after 2 years, can't we just call off the engagement? Engagements can be called off. For others, they naturally cannot, but you are the Deity of Medicine, and we are the Emperor. If we want to call it off, it can be called off. Deity of Medicine, you must think carefully. Sun Qi hesitated for a moment before finally saying, all right, then just set it for now. When I find a better young man, I will come back. Emperor Ning, he had casually said it, but did Sun Qi really believe that an engagement could be called off? A marriage sanctioned by the Emperor, that is something that does not allow for refusal. Sun Qi spoke as if he was buying cabbage from a street market. He really was unbelievably casual. Emperor Ning did his best to maintain his smile. All right, then it's been decided. Since Deity of Medicine has allowed it, we can feel at ease with announcing it. Sun Qi snorted, shouldn't your majesty worry a little about your own daughter? For a girl as old as that Princess Danyang, in Eastern Ling, she should have already gotten married, right? The spring banquet was different from normal palace banquets, as it was set in the imperial garden. The imperial garden was completely packed with people, and Yin Jiao was searching through the crowd for Gu Jiugu. However, she could not find him. Passing by some rockery, she suddenly heard a familiar voice come from the bamboo forest behind the rockery. This voice, was it not Gu Jiugu? She rejoiced and was about to pass by the rockery and walk over when she suddenly heard a girl's voice. Second brother, what secret did you want to tell me that not even eldest brother can hear about? Yin Jiao immediately stopped in her tracks. The only person who would call Gu Jiugu this way was Yu Fu, the newly appointed Princess Zhenjiang. Yu Fu and Gu Jiugu faced each other in the forest. She was dressed beautifully for today's palace banquet. Since being conferred the title of princess, Emperor Ning sent clothes and accessories fit for a princess. Yu Fu found the accessories to be too heavy and cumbersome, but she was fond of the outfit's broad sleeves, thus she was wearing a light yellow dress with broad sleeves. The long dress draped down to the ground of the vibrant bamboo forest, making her look like a young bamboo stalk. Yin Jiao moved smoothly to hide behind the rockery, wanting to hear what the siblings were saying. Gu Jiugu's voice was a little lethargic. Yes, not even eldest brother can hear about it. Yu Fu, have you heard about how His Majesty plans to sanction a marriage between you and eldest brother? Everyone in the capital knew about this piece of news, and Yu Fu naturally knew about it. She gently nodded, on. Gu Jiugu was quite shaken by her gentle response and was a little emotional. Do you really want to get engaged to eldest brother? I mean to say, do you not need to think it over a little? Yin Jiao's heart skipped a beat. She felt that there was something off about Gu Jiugu's tone. With someone of Gu Shubai's caliber, even if Gu Jiugu doted on his little sister, Yu Fu, he should not try to stop her. He should feel more at ease. His tone, however, did not sound this way. Rather, it sounded as if he wanted to compete against Gu Shubai for Yu Fu. There were so many girls in the capital that liked Gu Jiugu. Could it be that the one he liked was Yu Fu? Yin Jiao was suddenly struck by a feeling that could not be described. She raised a hand to hold her chest, as her elegant eyebrows slightly furrowed. She then heard Yu Fu's voice come from inside the bamboo forest, so second brother wanted to ask about this. I don't need to think it over. Head General and big brothers show such concern for me. Could it be that second brother doesn't want me to continue living in Marquis Gu's manor? If she became Gu Shubai's wife, she would be able to remain in Marquis Gu's manor for the rest of her life. Gu Jiugu's voice became a little rough. I want you to stay in Marquis Gu's manor, but there's no need to marry eldest brother to stay in Marquis Gu's manor. Could it be that, in your eyes, only eldest brother treats you well? What about me? No matter how clueless Yu Fu was about relationships between men and women, she was able to understand what Gu Jiugu meant. When he had pulled her away earlier, Gu Shubai was just off to the side, yet he did not ask a single thing. Eldest brother already knew that second brother was going to talk about this. She was complaining incessantly to herself. She clearly knew that if Gu Shubai was present, things would be even more disastrous, yet she was a little unprepared and did not know how to turn Gu Jiugu down. Naturally, second brother also treats me well. Although third brother looks cold and doesn't like to speak, I know that he does his best to treat me well. Fourth brother is kind and gentle when dealing with his younger siblings, and fifth brother and sixth brother have accompanied me in playing around. Everyone treats me very well. Yu Fu looked up at him and slowly said, but I can't marry everyone who treats me well. Gu Jiugu could not stop himself from taking a step back, only stopping once his path was blocked by some bamboo. On the surface, Yu Fu's words did not sound like much, but listening on a deeper level, they were quite embarrassing. That's right, there were so many men who treated her well. If she married every single one of them, just how many marriages would there be? Since she had chosen Gu Shubai, she must have thought it over long ago and did not just make a rash decision. Yu Fu continued, "Second brother, please don't worry. Although I am young, I have my considerations about people. That's why there's no need for second brother to worry about me. Where exactly am I worse than eldest brother? Is it because eldest brother is the heir?" Yu Fu furrowed her brow. She did not think that he would say such a thing. In second brother's eyes, am I someone who only pays attention to vanity and people with influence? Gu Jiugu suddenly woke up from his daze and realized how hurtful his unconscious words had been. He tried to explain, "Yu Fu, I didn't mean it that way. Second brother, if you really want to know, I will tell you where you don't match up to eldest brother." Yu Fu's gaze was steady with a natural iciness. The broad-sleeved princess dress that she wore was very fitting. For a moment, Gu Jiugu was caught unprepared. He felt that she was a natural-born princess. Yu Fu said, "When it comes to martial arts and talents, there's naturally no difference between the two of you. But feelings are not bought or sold. I can't just choose who is more outstanding. Comparatively, emotions are more important. When I first met second brother was cautious of me, but eldest brother smiled at me. When I fell into the river, and I was frightened, it was eldest brother who saved me. In the inky darkness of the cave in Changzhou, when even sixth brother, who spends his days playing with me, could not recognize me, eldest brother was able to recognize me. Although she was young, she was more understanding than others her age. All of her interactions with Gu Shubai remained in her mind. Hearing her clearly list out each of these things, Gu Jiugu felt more and more miserable. He wanted to say something but was unable to say a single word. It turned out that he lost out to Gu Shubai from top to bottom, yet he always thought that he was not lacking too much compared to him. In the Imperial Garden, there was a stream that ran through the middle, and the seating was arranged along this stream. From top to bottom, it was beautifully chaotic and quite entertaining. It was just that the seating arrangement was a little odd. In the past, the imperial harem would be seated below Emperor Ning, the princes and princess would be seated below the imperial harem, and below them would be the top civil and military officers Gu Huaijiang and Yin Yan. This time, however, with just the addition of Sun Qi, the arrangement was drastically different. Below the emperor was the imperial harem, but below the imperial harem was Sun Qi alone. Below him, Gu Huaijiang and Gu Jiugu were seated together, Yin Shuo and Yin Jiao were seated together, and Gu Shubai and Yu Fu were seated together. It was only then that we reached the eldest prince and the second prince. Princess Danyang was seated below the two princes. When she looked up at Emperor Ning, she would always see Yu Fu seated with Gu Shubai. She was a princess not of the imperial bloodline, so why was she seated so much higher than her? Emperor Ning assigning Sun Qi to sit above them was one thing, but why have Gu Huaijiang's group and Yin Shuo's group seated above the princes? The eldest prince and the second prince were the ones who felt this change in seating the most. Emperor Ning no longer wanted to be close to them. On the other hand, he was much closer with Gu Huaijiang. It was probably the case that he found it hard to elevate him alone above the princes, thus he also brought Yin Shuo up to the front. But Gu Huaijiang's position was still higher than Yin Shuo's. It was clear just how much more he valued him than Yin Shuo. Moreover, even Gu Shubai, the heir to the family, was able to occupy a higher seat than the princes. It could be seen just how much Emperor Ning valued Marquis Gu's manner. With this arrangement, the eldest prince was seated just below Yu Fu. He decided to chat with Yu Fu. "Sister Yu Fu." Yu Fu heard his voice and turned her head. It turned out to be the eldest prince, Brother Yi Zhao. The eldest prince nodded with a smile. "It's rare for the deity of medicine to visit Eastern Ling, so you must have been busy with taking care of him these past few days, right?" I heard that the imperial physicians have been visiting Marquis Gu's manor and causing you trouble. It's to the point that it's made me embarrassed to go and look for you. Yu Fu smiled and said, "There's no harm done. His Majesty told them to not visit Marquis Gu's manor to look for me too often. As for Master, senior disciple is taking care of him, so I'm not busy." Seeing that Yu Fu's attitude was the same as usual, the eldest prince was finally convinced that his poisoning of the emperor had not been discovered. After a pause, he asked, "The fiefdom that Father Emperor conferred to you, do you know where it is?" Yu Fu said, "I heard that it's in Zhenjiang, but I don't know what sort of place Zhenjiang is." The eldest prince knew that she was not from Eastern Ling, thus explained to her in detail, "Zhenjiang is to the north and is near Northern Li. Although it's near the border, it's very fertile. The people of Northern Li are unlike the people of Western Kuan. They would never head south to invade. At a certain day every year, the local official will send the taxes and offerings to the capital, and all of that revenue belongs to you." "Ha! So a conferred fiefdom has these benefits. I thought that it was just a title and not like a granting of territory to have princes and princesses go and govern them." Yu Fu had never concerned herself with these sorts of things. This was the first time that she had ever heard someone talk about what it meant to be conferred a fief. The eldest prince said, "Although there's no right to govern, nor is there any need to leave the capital to personally guard it, all of the benefits that should exist are present. You are not yet an adult, so have you thought about who you will have manage it?" Yu Fu turned her head. Gu Shubai was currently talking with Gu Huaijiang and was not paying attention to the situation on her side. She tugged on the corner of Gu Shubai's clothes. "Eldest brother, Brother Yizhao said that the fief that I was conferred will have offerings and taxes given to me. Did you know this?" Gu Shubai nodded. "Naturally, I knew." "Then why did you never mention it to me?" Gu Shubai looked at the eldest prince and smiled, saying, "Naturally, I will help you take care of it. If you want to take a look, I'll let you take a look at the register in the warehouse. Either way, it will be part of your dowry. Are you afraid that I'll take it?" After saying this, he turned back and continued talking with Gu Huaijiang. Yu Fu's face became a little redder. The engagement had not yet been announced, yet he was so quick to bring up a dowry. Even in front of the eldest prince, he did not avoid talking about it. The eldest prince saw this and lowered his head with a faint smile, then sneakily looked behind him. He saw that the second prince had been paying attention to his conversation with Yu Fu. Princess Danyang was also quietly watching, her eyes darting between Yu Fu and Gu Shubai. He deliberately raised his voice by just a little. "Shubai has never been blindly confident. It seems that he will be my future brother-in-law and husband to the daughter of my Eastern Ling's emperor." Not only did the second prince and Princess Danyang hear these words, but there were also quite a few officials nearby who heard them. They all looked over in shock. Emperor Ning seemed to notice that something had happened and lifted his cup with a smile. "We decided to host a spring banquet in the same way that the noble daughters do. The first reason is that we have recovered from illness and are in a great mood, but more importantly, it's to thank Deity of Medicine for treating us. Although Deity of Medicine is unwilling to accept an official position, in our heart, he is someone who has made great contributions to my Eastern Ling. We will honor him as an elder." After saying this, he raised his cup to Sun Qi in front of all of these officials. Sun Qi gave him face and returned the gesture. Following this, everyone else raised their cups, gave their thanks to Sun Qi, and congratulated Emperor Ning on his recovery. It had already been many days, yet they had not heard anything about Emperor Ning's illness. Imperial Consort Xian sat below Emperor Ning and looked at the joyous expressions of the various officials. The weight on her heart had also been pushed away. Emperor Ning lifted his cup a second time. "Also, taking advantage of the beautiful spring atmosphere, we have a joyous matter to announce." "Joyous matter?" Every time that there was an imperial banquet, there would be all sorts of joyous matters. It was never more than Emperor Ning and some member of the imperial harem taking note of some family's young sir and some family's young miss, then putting them together. As a result, when everyone heard this, they did not think much of it. This announcement was likely to be what the eldest prince had just mentioned, right? Sure enough, Emperor Ning smiled and said, "We have already asked Deity of Medicine for his opinion in the matter of sanctioning a marriage between Princess Zhenjiang and Marquis Gu's heir. Because the princess has not yet become of age, it's currently just an engagement. The wedding will take place 2 years from now." This matter had been leaked a long time ago, and today was just a formal announcement. Any feelings of dissatisfaction were now secretly pushed into the corners of their hearts, and nobody voiced them. This was true for the second prince, this was the case for Yin Shuo and Gu Jiugu. Gu Huaijiang was paying particularly close attention to his expressions. Fortunately, Gu Jiugu did not react too much. He just quietly downed his cup of wine. He was thinking about the final words that Yu Fu had said before leaving the bamboo forest. The scenery invokes memories of a distant place, the flowers falling with the rain and wind signal the passing of spring. Would it not be better to hold dear those close by? Miss Yao Yu is deeply in love with second brother, and there are even more girls at your side who love you. Second brother, do not let them down. Yu Fu did not like him. Could it be related to these girls who loved him? If there were not so many girls at his side, would Yu Fu have liked him? Gu Huaijiang was a little concerned and looked over at Gu Shubai. The latter gave him a look that told him to relax. Even though Gu Jiugu liked Yu Fu, he would not hurt his brother's feelings over that. This was something that Gu Shubai had faith in. They were brothers of the same flesh and blood. It was certain that they understood the situation perfectly well. More importantly, he had already spoken with Yu Fu in private. Given Gu Jiugu's personality, he would surely forget about it in due time. After Yin Shuo fiddled with his cup, he suddenly heard Yin Jiyao mumble. The scenery invokes memories of a distant place, the flowers falling with the rain and wind signal the passing of spring. Would it not be better to hold dear those close by? Yin Shuo slightly furrowed his brow. "Jiao, what are you saying?" "It's nothing, eldest brother. I just feel that this poem was too nice. That which does not belong to you will remain out of reach, and it would be better to turn your attention to those that you can have. Don't you think so?" Yin Shuo's gaze immediately became unkind. Staring at Yin Jiyao fiercely, his eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. They were exactly the same as the previously influential Yin Yan. Yin Jiyao shuddered, not knowing how her words had provoked Yin Shuo and made him so angry. Yin Shuo stared at her for a long time before finally looking away. It turned out that she was not talking about him. He had thought that Yin Jiyao was mocking him for being unable to get Yu Fu but still yearning for her. After much thought, Yin Jiyao could not possibly have the courage to do that. She could not possibly know what he thought about Yu Fu. Yin Jiyao was already feeling a little unhappy overhearing those words between Gu Jiugu and Yu Fu. Now that she had been glared at by Yin Shuo, tears were on the verge of welling up. In the end, Yin Shuo did not think of her as his true younger sister, right? The young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor were not Yu Fu's actual brothers, yet they treated Yu Fu even better than real older brothers would. She both jealous and envious. But Yin Shuo was clearly her older brother from the same manor, so why did he always treat her so strictly? She originally thought that after Yin Yan left, leaving just her and Yin Shuo to rely on each other, the situation was already different. Who knew that things would be exactly the same? She was still just an undesirable young miss of the Yin family. She was just a tool to be used. In front of so many people, she could not cry. No matter what, she could not cry. Yin Jiyao blinked a few times, desperately forcing her tears back down. When Yin Shuo turned to look at her, her expression had already returned to normal. It was brother who misunderstood you. You weren't scared, right? Yin Jiao's words did not match what she felt. Of course not, there's no need for eldest brother to worry. It was always like this. He thought that she could be comforted with just a few words. She was not a dog. How could she possibly forget the things that made her miserable just from being patted on the head? She looked over at where the group from Marquis Gu's manor were seated. Yu Fu was currently chatting with Gu Jiugu. It seemed to be something interesting, as Gu Jiugu immediately burst out laughing. He had just been turned down, but in the end, he still doted on Yu Fu and was made to laugh by her. Siblings like them, who could possibly believe that they did not share the same parents? Ha! Nobody noticed the discord between the Yin family siblings. Everyone was congratulating Sun Qi and Gu Huaijiang and congratulating Gu Shubai and Yu Fu. Sun Qi had a look of looking down on everyone. Don't congratulate me. It's already quite good that I didn't refuse. What is there to congratulate? Everyone present had heard about the deity of medicine's strange temperament. Hearing what was said, they could only smile, as nobody dared to respond. Sun Qi glanced at Emperor Ning, reminding him not to forget what he had promised. Emperor Ning suddenly recalled the discussion that he had had with Sun Qi. Making a hand gesture, he motioned for everyone to quiet down. There is a second joyous matter to announce. Aside from the marriage between Marquis Gu's heir and Princess Zhenjiang, we have another marriage to announce. Another one. Did Emperor Ning want to play at matchmaker for some family's child? Princess Danyang eagerly raised her head and saw Emperor Ning looking over at her with a doting expression. To whom should Princess Danyang be given? Part 1. When it comes to seniority, Princess Danyang comes first. Since we have sanctioned a marriage for Yu Fu, the matter of Danyang's marriage has also become quite pressing. Once these words came from Emperor Ning's mouth, everyone remembered that a Princess Danyang existed. In the past, the members of court believed that Emperor Ning would leave Gu Shubai for his own daughter. Princess Danyang liking Gu Shubai was common knowledge. Who knew that Gu Shubai would not look at Princess Danyang favorably and would risk being put in a dangerous situation with Sun Qi, insisting on wanting to marry Yu Fu? Princess Danyang had lost a great deal of face. The problem was that now that Gu Shubai had been given to Yu Fu, to whom should Princess Danyang be given? Although Prime Minister Yin has taken over for the previous Prime Minister Yin, he is still a little young. We will help you make a family. As a man, starting a family is just as important as your work. What does Prime Minister Yin think? Emperor Ning really knew how to pick them, actually choosing Yin Shuo. In Eastern Ling's court, aside from Gu Shubai who was a young man, who else was there aside from Yin Shuo? Although he had become the prime minister because Yin Yan had retired after doing something wrong, he also had actual talent. Emperor Ning had also put in quite a bit of thought for his beloved daughter. First, it was Gu Shubai, and now it was Yin Shuo. Danyang's face became stiff. She never thought that Emperor Ning would give her away to Yin Shuo in front of so many people without asking for her opinion first. Admittedly, Yin Shuo was fine, but how could he compare with Gu Shubai? When he sanctioned the marriage for Yu Fu, he had asked Sun Qi and Gu Huaijiang for their opinions. Why was he being so overbearing when it came to her marriage? Could it be that in Emperor Ning's eyes, she was less than Yu Fu? Yin Shuo's hand froze while holding his cup, as he turned to look in Yu Fu's direction for some unknown reason. Unfortunately, Yu Fu did not look at him. Instead, she was looking at Princess Danyang. However, Gu Shubai's eyes were focused on him with a bit of a mocking look. Deity of Medicine's trick was quite good. By giving Princess Danyang to Yin Shuo, not only would he be unable to cause him and Yu Fu any trouble, but Yin Shuo would also be much more tranquil. He refused to believe that Yin Shuo would dare to refuse this marriage in front of Emperor Ning and the various officials. Sure enough, after a pause, Yin Shuo quickly stood up. "This subject thanks your majesty for sanctioning the marriage. Naturally, this subject does not dare let down your imperial favor." Princess Danyang was not the person that he liked, but marrying her would not be a bad thing. As for that matter, the second prince's strategy was a little more likely to succeed than the eldest prince's. Emperor Ning laughed loudly and was very satisfied with this. "Good, very good. We have sanctioned the marriages of 2 princesses today to the 2 youngest and most talented members of court. This is truly perfection." The second prince gave Princess Danyang a shove. "What are you in a daze for? Why haven't you given thanks for the favor?" "Second brother, you clearly know." The second prince glared at her. "Danyang, you have always been understanding and have been a great pillar of support for brother. Today, if you refuse the marriage in front of all of these officials, do you know what the outcome would be? Moreover, Yin Shuo is the current prime minister. Once you marry him, we would be halfway to reaching our goals. Do you not understand this?" The second prince kept his voice down. The false smile on his face was for others to see, but every word that he said was like a knife stabbing into Princess Danyang's heart. Goal, for the sake of this goal, she had to give up on her personal feelings and give up the man of her dreams to someone else. Why did she have to relent to Yufu? Danyang. The second prince urged her in a forceful tone. It seemed that some people nearby noticed that something was off and looked over at them. Finally, Princess Danyang slowly stood up. "Thank you, Father Emperor." The Father Emperor, who always said that he doted on her, had one-sidedly made a decision for the rest of her life. The second prince, who had always relied on her and whom she had relied upon, also saw her as nothing more than a bargaining chip. Neither of them could be relied upon. If she wanted to steal back Gu Shubai, she needed to rely on herself. Good, be seated." Emperor Ning was surrounded by people congratulating him and was completely oblivious to the two's displeasure. As for Imperial Consort Xian, as a woman, she had some insights into what Princess Danyang was thinking. Delighted, she covered her mouth and smiled. Emperor Ning's decision was quite good. Based on Princess Danyang's personality, she definitely would not accept this compromise. When the time came, there would be a spectacle to behold. "Your Majesty, have a taste of this. They're pears that only just arrived in the palace this spring." Imperial Consort Xian brought a plate of pears that had been cut into small pieces up to him, then carefully picked them up with a fork before bringing them over to Emperor Ning's mouth. Emperor Ning took a look. The pear was snow white and looked very fresh. It looked as if it had just been peeled. He was a little surprised. The fruit was brought up a while ago. Why does the pear that beloved consort brought me look like it was only just pared? Mu Jin was serving off to the side and laughed upon hearing this. "Your Majesty, Her Highness personally pared these for you." It turned out that while Emperor Ning was speaking, Imperial Consort Xian had been paring pears for him. Emperor Ning was very moved, and the two lovingly spoke for a little while. Looking at Imperial Consort Xian's virtuous expression, how could any sign of carrying out a poisoning be found? Further down, Yu Fu retracted her gaze and picked up her cup of tea to take a look. "Eldest brother, I feel that Princess Danyang seems to be unhappy. Do you think she will try to come up with a way to get out of this marriage?" Though her voice was quiet, the eldest prince, who was seated nearby, heard it very clearly but pretended not to hear. He shifted slightly closer in Yu Fu's direction, wanting to hear how Gu Shubai would reply. Gu Shubai stealthily glanced in the eldest prince's direction and said, "It's possible. His Majesty has made his considerations. If His Majesty was willing to give her any room to decline, he would not have announced it without consulting her first. Don't you think that is the case? That's why, regardless of who wants to stop this marriage, His Majesty will definitely hand down a severe punishment. The eldest prince slowly returned to his original position. Originally, he had been worried about Princess Danyang marrying Inshua and whether or not that would add another chip to the second prince's pile. Thinking about it now, it could not be helped. There was no need for him to act. Princess Danyang would act on her own to try and stop it. When it happened, she would be the one punished by Emperor Ning. Gu Shubai was right. Right now, Emperor Ning had distanced himself from his and the second prince. He could not possibly act at a time like this and make Emperor Ning unhappy. Halfway through the banquet, fallen flowers started drifting along the bubbling stream, creating more beauty than could be taken in. Everyone looked in the direction that the flower petals had come from. Standing next to Emperor Ning were some palace maids holding baskets full of flower petals, and they were scattering them into the stream, creating something resembling a fairy's world. Emperor Ning smiled and said to Sun Qi, deity of medicine, just sitting around at a banquet is quite boring. Naturally, we must seek to do something fun. We wanted to imitate the spring purification celebration. What do you think? Sun Qi saw that everything that needed to be prepared had been prepared. Happy, he nodded. Accompanying these children to play around a little was not difficult. Spring purification celebration. The people below began commenting on this trick. It was only now that they realized why Emperor Ning had decided to host the spring banquet next to the stream. Was this little stream not the setting of the spring purification celebration? Emperor Ning cleared his throat. We shall place a cup of wine on a lotus leaf, and whomever the cup stops before must compose a poem. What does everyone think? The people present were among the noblest of people in Eastern Ling. Without commenting on their other talents, something as minor as reciting poetry was possible. If they could show off their talents in front of Emperor Ning, they might be able to obtain an opportunity to get promoted. As a result, everyone was eager to have this chance. Gu Huaijiang cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Isn't your Majesty troubling this subject? This subject only knows how to fight on the battlefield. How could I possibly understand poetry? Stop being so modest. Do you think that we don't know you well? Aside from martial arts, you've always taught your soldiers that they must put some effort into studying. How could you yourself not have an understanding? Moreover, you've prepared yourself amply. We are not afraid of you making some mistake." Emperor Ning laughed loudly, then ordered for the lotus leaf to be placed in the stream, and he personally placed the cup of wine on the leaf. Letting go, the large and vibrant green leaf slowly drifted along the surface of the stream. The stream flowed peacefully during the spring, and the lotus leaf drifted slowly along the surface, starting from in front of Sun Qi and passing by Gu Shubai and the others without any sign of stopping. When it drifted in front of Yin Jiao, it spun around before stopping. Everyone present turned to look at Yin Jiao. Everyone knew that Yin Yan had a daughter, but there were not many who had seen Yin Jiao. On the rare occasion that she did attend an imperial banquet, she maintained an incredibly low profile. If not for the wine cup stopping in front of her, it was possible that nobody would have noticed her. Emperor Ning looked downstream. "It's young Miss Yin who won, isn't that right?" Yin Jiao hastily stood up, seemingly a little reserved, replying, "To your Majesty, this humble girl is Yin Jiao." Emperor Ning looked her over and noticed that she had a slender figure and a shy bearing. She looked like a sickly girl from a small family. Yin Yan had raised Yin Shua to be natural and easy to talk to, so why did he raise his daughter like this? He smiled kindly, afraid of scaring Yin Jiao. "Young Miss Yin does not seem to come into the palace very often. Did you come to last year's mid-autumn banquet? We do not recall seeing you perform anything." Yin Jiao bowed, replying, "To your Majesty, this humble girl did come to last year's mid-autumn banquet but was not feeling well at the time, thus this humble girl had no ability to perform for your Majesty." I hope that your majesty understands. Inshoa also stood up and said, "That's right, your majesty. This subject's younger sister has always been frail, and the doctors have said that she must not exert herself too much. Moreover, she has very rarely gone out and has few talents. Even if she could force herself to compose a poem, it would be shameful. Would it not be better to find her a cup of wine?" Yin Jiao lightly bit her bottom lip. Ever since she was little, Yin Shuo and Yin Yan have forbidden her from going out and forbade her from expressing herself in front of others for fear of her true identity being uncovered. But even if she was a daughter of a concubine, what of it? Were daughters of concubines really that unfit to be seen? This time, she did not want to listen to Yin Shuo's orders. "Your Majesty, though this humble girl is not very talented, I am even weaker to wine. For the sake of my health, even if I must put on a poor display, this humble girl will do my best to compose a poem." Yin Shuo looked at her in disbelief. Yin Jiao lowered her head, not daring to meet his gaze, but she resolutely bit her lip and did not give up. It seemed that she had set her mind on showing off her talents. Yin Shuo suddenly smiled, the corners of his lips twitching upward. Looking from afar, it was just a smile, but upon closer inspection, the smile did not reach his eyes. He lowered his voice, "Little sister has grown up. You have gained some independence. This is a good thing." After saying this, he smiled to Emperor Ning and sat back down with the fake smile still on his face. Emperor Ning said, "Then young Miss Yin, please begin." Yin Jiao quickly said, "With complicated feelings we meet again, trembling in the arms of a lover while tears are wiped away. After the somberness comes mutual understanding, unable to bear the enmity under the clear moonlight." She already appeared frail, and now that she recited such a somber and sorrowful poem, it was particularly moving. Even Gu Jiugu could not help but look in her direction. In the past, he knew that she was talented but did not know that she was also able to improvise so quickly. He had looked down on her too much. Emperor Ning smiled and clapped, "Good, it was well composed. It must have been difficult to compose such a good poem without any flaws. It's just that if we have not misunderstood, the poem is about the feelings of farewell, yes? Could it be that this young Miss Yin had a man whom she was thinking of, and she was using this poem to express it?" Yin Jiao subconsciously glanced in Gu Jiugu's direction, then quickly retracted her gaze. However, there were quite a few people who saw this subconscious action. Her face turned slightly red, and she bowed in salute, replying, "To your Majesty, this humble girl is just thinking of my late mother and my father who recently left. There is no other reason." When she brought up her mother, Yin Shuo's expression slightly changed. Yin Jiao knew that she had misspoken. Fearing that it would lead to wild speculation on the matter, she hastily picked up the cup of wine from the stream. Today was meant to be a joyous day, thus this humble girl should not have come up with such a depressing poem. This humble girl will drink a cup as punishment. After saying this, she downed the cup of wine. After sitting back down, she held her chest and gently coughed. Everyone understood the circumstances under which Yin Yan had left. When Yin Jiao brought this up, Emperor Ning was displeased but smiled after seeing her punish herself with a cup of wine. Since she was a young girl, she probably did not do it on purpose. There was no need to punish her any further. Emperor Ning waved his hand and gave eunuch Gao a look, "Quickly write down young Miss Yin's poem." If everyone could have the same level of creativity as young Miss Yin, it's possible that the poems from today's spring banquet could become something on par with the Lantinggi Su. Yin Jiao let out a long sigh of relief. She finally showed herself in front of Emperor Ning and everyone else. She was no longer just a young miss from the Prime Minister's manor that nobody knew about. But Yin Shuo was clearly displeased. He never thought that there would come a day when she would oppose him. She forced a smile and grabbed Inshuo's arm, trying to explain to him in a gentle tone, "Eldest brother, I was just..." Inshuo coldly pulled his arm back, leaving Injiao's hand to hang in midair before she awkwardly retracted her hand. "There's no need to explain." He was clearly smiling, but his words were as cold as metal. Those nearby were definitely unable to tell what he had said to her, leaving her all alone to bear this coldness in the middle of this banquet. The second cup of wine began drifting down the stream. This time, the lotus leaf drifted past Inshuo and Yin Jiao's seats and continued to bravely drift further downstream. Yu Fu smiled and Gu Shubai and said, "I haven't seen eldest brother compose a poem before. I only ever saw a few essays that were left with teacher Lin from when eldest brother was younger." Gu Shubai watched the lotus leaf drift past the eldest prince and gently laughed, saying, "Oh? Which essays did you see?" His eyes shimmered with curiosity, as he looked at Yu Fu from up close. The latter was a little embarrassed. Slightly lowering her head, she thought back to Gu Shubai's poems that she had seen and wanted to tell him that she would not forget something that she had seen once. Suddenly, she heard a sound. It turned out that a palace maid near the eldest prince had dropped a pear into the stream. Initially, the lotus leaf had stopped in front of the second prince. With the splash caused by the pear, it was dislodged and continued downstream. With this happening, the cup stopped in front of Princess Danyang. "How could you be so careless?" The eldest prince gently scolded her, and the palace maid acknowledged her mistake, immediately dropping to her knees and not daring to offer any excuses. Under normal circumstances, dropping a pear was not a big deal, yet her carelessness had changed where the lotus leaf stopped. This made it a big deal. Everyone up above saw this, and it was Emperor Ning who said, "Forget it. She didn't do it on purpose." Since the cup stopped in front of Danyang, let's have Danyang compose a poem. Princess Danyang and Yin Shuo very rarely interacted. Allowing her to show off a little would allow Yin Shuo to know her better. He might even slowly come to adore her, and the marriage between the two would become even more harmonious. Princess Danyang was currently in a trance and was thinking about how she could steal Gu Shubai back when she was suddenly named to compose a poem. Her mind was a mess. How could she be in the right mind to compose a poem? The second prince shot a glare at the eldest prince, his eyes filled with enmity. As Princess Danyang's imperial brother, the eldest prince clearly knew what she felt for Gu Shubai, yet he insisted on having her compose a poem at a time like this. It was clear that he was trying to have her make a fool of herself. The eldest prince looked back at him with an innocent expression, "Second brother, don't be so anxious." It was imperial brother's servant who was clumsy and ruined second brother's chance at glory. "I will send this servant to second brother's palace later to be punished as you see fit. What do you think? No matter how clever a dog is, don't they still listen to their master? It's only you and me here. Why must eldest brother play dumb and refuse to admit it?" The eldest faintly smiled and retracted his gaze, ignoring his endless pestering. Who said that they were the only ones who could hear? Gu Shubai and his group were sitting nearby. He had heard that once someone's martial arts ability reached a certain level, their hearing would be better than normal. Moreover, the extremely old deity of medicine was also present. He did not dare carelessly reveal what he truly thought. Princess Danyang carefully thought back. During the usual gatherings of noble young ladies, they would recite poems for fun. Right now, she could just recite a poem that had already been written before. It was just that she was in too much of a rush and could not think of a good one. Got one. It was a rather normal one, but it was rather fitting for the occasion. She stood up and slowly recited, "Cherry blossoms cover the mountaintops, and the spring melt streams down the mountain. The red flowers quickly wither much like love, the water flows endlessly like my worry." Once again, It was a heartfelt poem filled with misery, but with that exquisite poem by Yin Jiao coming first, Princess Danyang's felt much more shallow. Moreover, it was not refined to express the trivial matters shared amongst young ladies to a crowd of court officials. Yin Jiao's poem could be explained as thinking of her parents, but Princess Danyang's poem had the tone of an abandoned wife. Connecting the dots, they thought back to Emperor Ning sanctioning the marriage between Yu Fu and Gu Shubai. With these thoughts in mind, could it be that Princess Danyang thought of herself as Gu Shubai's abandoned wife? For a girl who was not yet married, such behavior was far too lacking in dignity. In the crowd, some began to quietly discuss this. There were also some who covered their mouths and secretly laughed. Imperial Consort Xian cast a quiet look of scorn in her direction. This sort of princess born of the Empress was worthy of showing off in front of Emperor Ning. PFT, Emperor Ning's expression immediately turned ugly, as he looked at Princess Danyang with a look of disappointment that she had never seen before. She was not just losing face for herself. More importantly, she was losing face for Emperor Ning. He was the one who sanctioned the marriage, and Princess Danyang was now using this sort of poem to express her opposition. How could he step down with grace? Emperor Ning quietly looked at her, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Imperial Consort Xian pretended not to see. She hoped for it to get as out of hand as possible. Of course, she would not try to advise Emperor Ning to stop. On the other hand, Sun Qi looked up from his chicken leg. Your Majesty has just recovered and should avoid getting angry. If a child is being naughty, just give them a beating. Just look at Tian Shu. He turned his head and suddenly remembered that Tian Shu had not accompanied him into the palace. Instead, he remained in Marquis Gu's manor to train with Gu Hanamo. This was better. Like this, he could speak ill of him without worry. Tian Shu was raised by me from a young age through various beatings. Just look at how well behaved he is now. Yu Fu was very supportive, bursting out laughing. Following this, Gu Shubai and Gu Huaijiang also began laughing. The eldest prince laughed and cupped his hands, saying, "Deity of Medicine's words are reasonable. Your second disciple is indeed very well behaved." That was right. He was so well behaved that he even refused to let go of his sword when entering Emperor Ning's bed chamber, and so well behaved that he knocked out tens of the Gu family soldiers upon arriving in Eastern Ling. There were none who were more well behaved. The eldest prince continued, "I just wonder, was Sister Yu Fu ever punished by Deity of Medicine?" He deliberately made use of what Sun Qi had said to change the topic. Emperor Ning's expression had become much better, and he no longer looked at Princess Danyang. Although Danyang was the second prince's younger sister, the one to have made an appearance to alleviate the situation had been the eldest prince. It could be seen just how much he valued familial relations. Emperor Ning tightly held Imperial Consort Xian's hand with a very approving look. Imperial Consort Xian smiled even more gently. She and the eldest prince had enjoyed all of the gains, while the one to lose face and become hated by Emperor Ning was the second prince's younger sister. It was natural that she would be able to smile. Sun Qi immediately argued back, "How could that be possible? Our Yu Fu has always been understanding from a young age. I could never bring myself to touch her pinky, much less punish her. Some children only become well-behaved after a beating, and some are very well-behaved without needing a beating. Marquis Gu, what do you think? Look, look." The Sun Qi who looked down on everyone else did not hold back when talking about his second disciple. Only Yu Fu received such kind treatment. Such a master, was he not a little too biased? Princess Danyang, who had been implicitly named as a part of a certain group of children, became pale, as she realized that she had become the butt of everyone's jokes. This deity of medicine must have done it on purpose, making fun of her for Yu Fu's sake. Gu Huaijiang slowly nodded with approval on his face, deity of medicine, is right. Like the 7 children of my family, Shubai and Jogu were practically never beaten, but Gu-yi will get a beating every few days. But none can compare with Yu-fu. Yu-fu is even more understanding than all of them. Why did it feel like Gu Huaijiang was trying to steal away a child? He competed with Sun Qi in praising Yu-fu, as if whoever praised her more would become Yu-fu's actual family. Insane, it was truly insane. Emperor Ning gently coughed to remind the two. Right now, Yu-fu was not just their child. She was also considered his daughter. First, there were Gu Shubai and Tian Shu fighting outside of Emperor Ning's bedchamber to fight for a wife. Then there were Sun Qi, Gu Huaijiang, and Emperor Ning who fought to claim a daughter. Just how desirable was Yu-fu? As the focal point of the argument, Yu-fu just sat there obediently and pretended to not hear anything. If she dared to interject, it would definitely lead to even more conflict. She did not know about other people, but she understood Sun Qi very well. He would definitely argue until he won. The old guy was like a really old child. His personality brought her and her many fellow disciples much laughter. When Yu-fu recalled the past in Immortals Valley, she could not help but smile foolishly, but a piece of pear was suddenly stuffed into her mouth. Gu Shubai looked at her with a bit of delight. Just let them argue. At home, you will leave father and get married to your husband. You will belong to me for decades to come. Yu-fu's heart nearly skipped a beat. He was so domineering, yet she could not get mad at him at all. In Marquis Gu's manner, Gu Hanamo and Tian Shu lay on the ground without any concern for image, their swords carelessly laying on the ground to the side. The ground nearby was littered with shredded flower petals and leaves. The martial arts training ground looked like a whirlwind had come through. Without any care for maintaining their elegance, they fought for an entire day. They were completely exhausted. The two lay on the ground breathing heavily. After a long pause, Gu Hanamo spoke first. Tian Shu, do you really not like Yu-fu? TSK, how could that be possible? Gu Hanamo immediately sat up and picked up his sword to teach him a lesson. He then heard Tian Shu say, she is my junior disciple sister. I watched her grow up. She's beautiful, smart, kind, and well-behaved. Who could possibly not like her? But it's not that kind of feeling. Oh. Gu Hanamo lay back down on the ground. He had always been a person with few words. Tian Shu, however, was different. He had quite a bit to say to people he was familiar with. Gu Hanamo and he could be considered friends through fighting. In his eyes, Gu Hanamo could be considered someone familiar, thus he had more to say. You don't know, right? I like men. What? This time, Gu Hanamo really leaped up. What are you blustering over? It's not like I like you. The one that I like is our senior disciple sister. You, how can a man like men? You actually told this to me without the slightest bit of embarrassment. I would rather not have known. It was rare for Gu Hanamo to get so shaken. Tian Shu found him quite interesting and sat up. He patted the spot to his side, gesturing for Gu Hanamo to sit down to speak. Do you know why I like men? Gu Hanamo shook his head with a cold expression. Because I initially did not know that senior disciple sister is actually a man. Right, he did indeed say sister and not brother. Gu Hanamo said, your senior disciple sister is a man who dresses like a woman. Tian Shu plainly nodded. If I had known that he was a man from the start, I definitely would not have liked him. But after I liked him, I would keep confessing to him, and he would keep rejecting me. On the 6th time, he took off his clothes. The two sat on the ground and chatted for a while with great emotion. It turned out that the person Tian Shu liked was called Hua Wujia. He was the deity of medicine's disciple and always dressed in women's clothing, and the people in Immortals Valley referred to him as eldest senior disciple sister. Who knew that he would actually be a man? It was just that he liked dressing as a woman. Sun Qi also knew about this but did not care about it. You don't like men dressed as women, and I don't like them either. I think it's perverse. But after Master found out about it, he was very casual about it. He said that a common person's life only lasts for a few decades. They should just do whatever they like and wear what they like. What your senior disciple sister wears, how is that any of your damn business? Gu Hanamo, that did indeed sound like something Sun Qi would say. Since you already know that he's a man, why don't you just stop liking him? Once these words came from Gu Hanamo, he saw Tian Shu's cold face distorted like a block of ice cracking from a fire. He gnashed his teeth and faintly smiled through the anger. If I could stop liking him as easily as you said it, it would not be love. Heavens knew just how much he wanted to no longer like a man. Gu Hanamo fell silent. He had always been uncomfortable with these sorts of things. Hearing Tian Shu's experiences, he sympathized with him greatly. Unfortunately, he did not understand what this sort of love meant. In his everyday life, he was either training or training. All of the matters in the military and at the manor were taken care of by father, eldest brother, and second brother. There was no need for him to worry about such things. There was not even a need for him to look after his younger brothers and sister. His life was simple and pure. Aside from familial love, he still did not understand any other kinds of affection. Tian Shu saw his blank expression and silently cursed, "There's actually someone with a colder face than me. How unromantic." After saying this, he lifted his sword. "Come, let's continue." Third young sir. Gu Hanamo picked up his sword and suddenly saw the servant from his courtyard enter the martial arts training area. He looked like he was in a rush. Tian Shu also unhappily looked over at the servant, hating that he had disrupted his enthusiasm. The servant saw the ice-cold expression that was on par with the third young sir's and lowered his head in fear. "Third young sir, this servant has some important news to report." "Speak." The servant looked at Tian Shu with hesitation. It would not be good if outsiders heard about the family's bad news. Gu Hanamo furrowed his brow. Yu Fu's senior disciple brother is part of the Marquis Manor. If you have something to say, just say it. Yes, third young sir. You sent me to keep an eye on the fourth young sir in case he sought out that actor, Yu Guan. Just now, the fourth young sir left the manor. Sure enough, he set out on horse for where that actor lives outside the city. What? Gu Hanmo's expression turned incredibly ugly. Gu Wenqing had always been prudent and kind. Many people said that he had Gu Shubai's bearing and that he would definitely become more talented as he grew older. Who knew that he would mingle with that lowly actor time and time again? He truly did not have any sense of propriety. Gu Hanmo's expression changed, as he lifted his sword and moved to follow the servant out. Tian Shu faintly said, "Master and Yu Fu have both gone into the palace to enjoy the banquet, and there's nothing for me to do in the manor. How about I go with you?" Gu Hanamo did not care about such things. He simply nodded and walked out. The two set out on horse and headed out of the city. Not long later, they saw a collective of buildings at the foot of the mountain. In front of the buildings, there were red paper lanterns hanging. Outside of the city, there were mostly farmer families, and they were reluctant to light candles at night, so how could they be willing to light the lanterns outside? Gu Hanamo looked over at Tian Shu and said, "Do you see that? The buildings with lanterns are all brothels. At night, they light the lanterns to let their customers know where they are. That Yu Guan lives in there." Tian Shu very rarely left the isolated valley. Hearing what was said, he just quietly nodded. Based on what you said, this actor called Yu Guan is the headlining performer of the troupe and a proper worker. Why are you so unwilling to allow the fourth young sir to interact with him? You might not know, but acting is not a proper profession in Eastern Ling. It's not much different from being a prostitute. Moreover, fourth brother is his benefactor. If he is thankful for fourth brother, he should take the initiative to cut off ties with fourth brother. What reason does he have for enticing fourth brother to come and visit him? Tian Shu did not say anything else. The two rode over, and women came out from the buildings to receive them. Seeing that the two did not look like common folk and looked like they had come from wealthy families, the women tried to get close and start a conversation. The second young sir was indeed handsome, and he looked quite wealthy, but his eyes were too frightening. He was like a chunk of ice. Just one look would make them shudder. Which one is Yu Guan's house? It turned out they had come looking to have fun with a man. It was no wonder he was so cold toward these beautiful women. A middle-aged woman in garish clothes and heavy makeup summoned some courage to step forward, waving the green handkerchief in her hand, there, in the back. It's the one nearest the foot of the mountain. Gu Hanamo tossed a tail of silver to her, then headed in that direction. The woman caught the silver, and her eyes lit up. Who knew that just a few words would earn her such a plentiful payment? Ah! This is even more than I would earn from receiving clients all day. Those two young sirs really are wealthy. So what if they have money? They came looking for men. Let's go. A faint sound came from the building near the foot of the mountain. Someone was performing a play. There was even the sound of an instrument being played. Compared to the loud performance on a stage, this was much more tasteful. It was just that the voice of the one performing sounded a little familiar. Gu Hanamo furrowed his brow, no daring to believe his own theory. Tian Shu tugged on his sleeve and pointed up. Gu Hanamo immediately understood, and the two soared up onto the roof. Lifting a roof tile, they immediately understood the situation inside. Even they aren't so lacking in understanding. This was in front of Yu Guan, and Tian Shu would likely be able to hear from outside the door, thus he did not want to say too much. He just coldly said, "You still aren't going to follow me back to the manor." Since he had been taught from a young age, Gu Wenqing had always respected his elders, and he did not dare go against his older brother's orders. He could only give Yu Guan a look. Yu Guan had always been good at reading the atmosphere. Seeing the current situation, he gave him a reassuring look. Gu Hanamo was an educated young sir from a prominent family. He had only kicked down his door and had not beaten him or insulted him. Moreover, he was right. He himself was someone of low standing. Gu Wenqing mingling with him was indeed improper. Gu Hanamo strode out of the room, and Gu Wenqing followed him out with his head down. A strong gust of wind blew into the room through the exposed doorway. Yu Guan leaned against the dusty wall and watched the three ride off in a daze. He thought back to every time that Gu Wenqing had taken advantage of when there was nobody home to come and ask him to teach him to perform with his sincere and joyous expression. Gu Wenqing really liked acting. He truly did not think that acting was lowly. On the contrary, he felt that it was very interesting. He had traveled with his troupe to many places and met many young sirs from many prominent families. Regardless of whether they had money or influence, there was never another person who treated him as earnestly as Gu Wenqing. It was not for the sake of toying with him nor to mess with him. Every time that the two got together in this small room, one would sing and one would learn. While one trained in singing, the other played the accompaniment. It was quite enjoyable. Unfortunately, those enjoyable days would probably never come again. "Oh, is this not Yu Guan? What are you standing there on your own and crying for?" There was not much business during the day, and the girls working at the brothel would come to observe Yu Guan when they were idle. It was very rare for such extravagant young sirs to come and visit a place as uncouth as theirs, much less one so brilliant. Who knew that they would happen to see Yu Guan made a fool of? Yu Guan immediately wiped away his tears and forced a smile, saying, "It's nothing. The wind just got into my eyes." He turned around and walked back into the room. Although he lived near these brothels, he had never interacted with these people much. They also were not on the same path in life. The girls saw that he was ignoring them. This made them want to bully him even more, thus they barged straight into his room. The door had been kicked down by Gu Hanamo and could not be immediately repaired. He wanted to chase these girls out but had no way of doing so. For a while, he was angry and ashamed. One of the girls was eating seeds and said with a smile, "What, are you afraid that we'll make your place dirty? You don't even think about what difference there is between us. Are we not the same type of people? What, a rabbit god dares to have embarrassed of us? Damn!" A mouthful of seed husks was spat out from her red lips. They fluttered in the air like snowflakes before landing on Yu Guan's clean floor. In front of Marquis Gu's manor, the cold-faced Gu Hanamo dismounted. Gu Wenqing, who was like a punching bag, followed along behind him. The soldiers saw this sort of thing quite often and were accustomed to seeing it. It was just that the third young sir's expression seemed to be particularly chilly today. "Have father and elder brothers returned yet?" Replying to third young sir, "They have not." Gu Hanamo nodded and stepped through the door. Gu Wenqing obediently followed along. Tian Shu was at the back, deliberately slowing his pace, allowing the two of them to get further away before walking up to the soldiers. "If you don't want anything to happen to your fourth young sir, quickly send someone into the palace to inform your marquis." What terrible thing did the fourth young sir do? The soldier knew that Tian Shu would not say such a thing for no reason and hastily cupped his hands, saying, "If something is really going to happen, immortal practitioner of medicine, please stop it. I will immediately set out." Someone had already led a horse over. Seeing the soldier rush over, Tian Shu continued into the manor. Third brother, fourth brother, Yu Tu, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi left their courtyard and found that everyone in the manor had disappeared. Those who had gone into the palace were in the palace, but Gu Hanamo and Gu Wenqing should still be at the manor. Why was it that neither of them could be found, and even Tian Shu was missing? The two panicked for a while. Who knew that when they saw Gu Hanamo, they would see a terrifying expression? As for Gu Wenqing, he miserably followed along behind him. It was immediately clear that he had been caught doing something wrong. Strange, why was it that fourth brother seemed to be more adept at making mistakes than them in recent days? Last time, he did not return to the city overnight because he was with that Yu Guan person. What mistake could he have made this time? Gu Yi summoned the courage to say, "Third brother, what did fourth brother, kneel?" Gu Hanamo shouted fiercely. This scared Gu Yi and left him too scared to speak, as he went to weakly hide off to the side. Gu Wenqing lifted the hem of his robe and kneeled outside the main hall while keeping his back perfectly straight. He did not make a single argument on his own behalf. Just stay kneeling there. You can stand up when you have reflected on the situation properly. Gu Wenqing suddenly said, "Third brother, I want to ask you. How did you know that I was at Yu Guan's place? Did you have someone follow me?" It was Yu Guan again. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi exchanged a look. This was bad. This was bad. Third brother hated actors the most. Fourth brother was really unlucky this time. Gu Hanamo did not refute it. "If you were able to see the truth, what need would I have to send someone to follow you? I haven't done anything unseemly. I just like operas and happened to learn a few from Yu Guan." Why is third brother so unwilling to accept it? What? Gu Wenqing actually went to find Yu Guan to learn to act. In Eastern Ling, there were exceedingly few young sirs from prominent families who would take up acting unless their family was in decline. It was no wonder third brother was angry. But if it was just learning to act, it did not seem to be excessive. You still refuse to repent. Gu Hanmo's voice was cold. You are truly incorrigible. Saying this, he flicked his sleeve and left. He was like a chain of firecrackers about to explode, so he left before he could explode. Gu Yi let out a long sigh. So scary. I was scared to death. Third brother hasn't gotten that mad in a really long time. What are you getting scared for? The one being cursed isn't you. Quickly help fourth brother think of something. Gu Xiang rolled his eyes at him, and the two squatted down next to Gu Wenqing and held their chins in contemplation. Gu Wenqing forced a smile. There's no need for you two to help me come up with some ideas. Be careful to not make third brother get mad at you guys too. Gu Yi suddenly smacked himself on the forehead, as he had come up with a good idea. Right, what is the point of us thinking of something here? Little Yu Fu is smart. She will definitely have an idea. Also, third brother dares to get mad at us, but he doesn't dare get mad at Yu Fu. This idea sounded reliable, and Gu Xiang stood up and said, then I will go and have someone go into the palace to tell Yu Fu. You sneak fourth brother some rations. Who knows how long he'll need to stay kneeling. The two went their separate ways. When Gu Xiang arrived outside, he saw that none of Gu Hanmo's people were outside before shouting, quickly send someone into the palace to tell young miss that fourth brother is in trouble. The soldier cupped his hands and said, Fifth young sir, the immortal practitioner of medicine already had us send someone, and they've been gone for some time. Don't worry. It was second senior disciple? Gu Xiang laughed, who knew that second senior disciple would have a cold expression but be so kind-hearted and compassionate. He's also so considerate of our Marquis Gu's manners familial matters. Who is being considerate of your familial matters? Tian Shu's voice suddenly came from above his head. He was casually laying on the roof, as the hem of his robes billowed. I was worried that Yu Fu would be sad without her fourth brother. Your third brother does not understand feelings of love and is far more vicious in his moves. The palace banquet ended, and just as Gu Huaijiang's group arrived outside of the palace, they saw a group of fast horses coming over. The one riding the horse was a soldier from Marquis Gu's manor. Seeing their group, he immediately dismounted and went to report, Lord Marquis, the fourth young sir did something improper and was caught by the third young sir. He is currently being punished in the manor. The immortal practitioner of medicine directed this subordinate to come and report. Would Lord Marquis please quickly return to the manor to take a look? Gu Wenqing had always been reasonable and steady. How could he make a serious mistake that would need Tian Shu to intervene? Yu Fu immediately said, Is it because of Yu Guan? Aside from this, she could not think of Gu Wenqing making any other mistake. The soldier thought for a bit, I only know that they came back from outside of the city. As for anything else, I do not know for certain. They returned from outside of the city. It is absolutely related to Yu Guan. Master, head general, you two return to the manor first. I will make a trip outside of the city. During the idle time a few days earlier, Yu Fu finally learned how to ride a horse at the martial arts training area. Now that her body had begun to grow, her legs were now able to reach the stirrups. As a result, learning to ride a horse was very easy. Seeing her ride off on a soldier's horse, Gu Shubai wanted to stop her but was stopped by Sun Qi. Don't worry. The disciples of Immortals Valley have a natural affinity with animals. This is especially true of Yu Fu. She is able to ride a horse and protect herself. If you guys always treat her like a flower to be kept in a greenhouse, when will she get a chance to grow up? After saying this, he turned around and climbed into a carriage, no longer paying attention to the father and children. He really was carefree. Yu Fu was sent away from the valley at just 12 years old, and she had been given so much gold and silver. He really was not worried about Yu Fu being robbed. It was fortunate that it was the Gu family's army that took Yu Fu away. If she had fallen into someone else's hands, who knew just how regretful he might be. But since he insisted on this, Gu Huaijiang and the others could not say anything. Forget it, since deity of medicine believes in her this much, just let Yu Fu go on her own. Let's go back to the manor to see Wenqing. Yu Fu rode outside of the city and followed the directions that Gu Wenqing had previously told her, riding north along the main road. Upon reaching the foot of the mountains, she would see quite a number of buildings with red lanterns hanging in front. She held the horse's reins and stopped in front of the buildings, then tied the horse up next to a tree and carefully observed the buildings. Fourth brother only said that it was here but did not say which one it was. Based on Yu Guan's personality and identity, which one would he live in? Young miss. A voice suddenly came from behind her, and Yu Fu was given a shock, immediately turning around and taking a few steps back. She just saw an old woman whose face was covered in white powder looking back at her with a smile. She also had a wildflower in her hair and looked very flighty. The way that she looked at her was exactly the same as the way a wolf would look at a sheep. Yu Fu felt very uncomfortable. The old woman said, "I came out to dump some water and saw young miss in expensive clothing and makeup. You do not look like one of our girls, so I wanted to come and ask. What has young miss come here for?" While speaking, she continued to look over Yu Fu. Yu Fu mentally could not tolerate it. "I came to look for someone and will not trouble you." After saying this, she headed off along the path on her own. She examined the buildings, hoping that she might be able to figure out where Yu Guan lived. The old woman was not particularly annoyed by her cold refusal and quietly followed behind Yu Fu. Yu Fu kept her in mind and noticed that she was following her. What did she want to do? Before she could think things through, two flirtatious women came from the path ahead and looked at her with their hands on their hips. "Oh, Mama, you've really found some nice goods. She's a lot better than the two of us, but she's a little young." One of the girls casually sized her up, while the other girl slightly frowned. "Mama, this doesn't look like the girl from the usual family. It can't be that something happened, right?" Although these girls from the brothels had lowly statuses and were unfit to be seen in public, they had served a few people of noble status. Looking at the fabric of the clothes that Yu Fu wore, the jade tablet hanging from her hip, and the head ornaments in her hair, none of them were common items. The old woman following Yu Fu smiled joyously. "Of course, she's not the girl from the usual family. She rode a horse over. What normal family would have such a good horse?" In the end, those two girls were still young. Hearing the old woman say this, they were quite shaken. A young miss from a wealthy family. Then Mama, why haven't you sent her off yet? If people come searching for her, how could we endure that? The girl who had frowned felt more and more that something was off the longer that she looked at Yu Fu's clothes. "Look, don't the clothes that she's wearing look like court clothes? I remember that only court clothes have such broad sleeves. Could it be that she's a noble from the palace?" The old woman squinted her eyes and looked over Yu Fu, saying in a forceful voice, "Don't spout nonsense. What noble from the palace? Could a noble come to a place like ours on their own? Such a beautiful little girl, if we tie her up, it's possible that she could sell for hundreds of taels of silver in a single night. Do you not want to make money?" While they were talking, Yu Fu was focused on the buildings nearby and suddenly saw a building without a red lantern hanging in front at the foot of the mountain. Right, Yu Guan did not do any shady business, so there was no need for him to hang a red lantern in front of his door to attract visitors. Have you guys finished speaking? Yu Fu suddenly spoke up. Her dimples were charming, and her eyes arced from her smile, but the look in her eyes was frightening. The two younger girls did not dare move, and Yu Fu turned around, curling her finger at the old woman. Come on. The old woman hesitated for a moment. No matter how she thought about it, she was reluctant to let as desirable a product as Yu Fu get away. The bearing of a daughter of a wealthy family really was different from those who worked in brothels. She could definitely be sold for a large sum. For the sake of money, she went for it. She refused to believe that a little girl like her would be able to take her on. The old woman rushed at Yu Fu, but before she could even reach the hem of Yu Fu's clothes, poison needles flew from Yu Fu's hand. 3 landed in a neat row on the old woman's forehead. White powder drifted down, as the old woman's eyes rolled back in her head, and her entire body went limp and collapsed to the ground. The two girls were scared silly. Young miss, what did you do to her? Yu Fu did not answer and asked, is she your mother? I heard you calling her mother earlier. No, young miss might not know, but we are also girls that she abducted. She's raised us from 15 years old until now. We took care of customers for her to make money. She saw young miss come here alone and wanted us to come with her to capture you, but we've never done this sort of thing before. Yu Fu believed them. If they were skilled at abducting girls, they would not be so cowardly, immediately becoming lost upon seeing the old woman fall. Since you were also abducted, do you want to work a proper job? Proper job, the two had blank looks on their faces. They had become prostitutes at a young age. Aside from this, what else could they do? Young miss, we don't know how to do anything. Yu Fu remembered that she still had some important matters to handle today and pulled out a couple of small scraps of gold from her coin purse. Take these. Once you've thought things through, come and find me. She was struck by my poison needle. If you want to save her life, send her to the medical clinic. If you don't want to save her, just send her to the government office in the capital. The people there will know how to deal with her. Her life is in your hands. While the two were still stunned, Yu Fu left. Seeing the old woman collapsed on the ground without waking up, the two hesitated for a while. Shinger, we didn't do anything earlier. Did you hear what that young miss said? If we send the old woman to the government office, they will naturally know how to deal with her. This means that the people at the government office recognize the young miss poison needles. To be able to have officials immediately recognize them and know how to deal with them, just what sort of status must that person have? Yu Fu arrived at the building without a red lantern hanging out front and heard the voices of some women come from inside. This made her think that she had come to the wrong house. Just as she was planning to leave, she suddenly heard a woman shout and curse, "Shit! Did you think that just because you also became a noble after getting a noble guest? A man who sells his body is even lower than us women. What nonsense are you spouting? When have I ever done such a thing?" The man's delicate and tender voice was trembling with anger, but Yu Fu was able to recognize that it belonged to Yu Guan. He was like a ball of cotton sinking in a well. He sank lower and lower until the well water had completely permeated his being. He restrained himself and kept a low profile, leaving others unable to read his true emotions. All that remained was modesty. Just like when they had first met backstage. The words that had just been said were subtly filled with anger. This was probably his limit, right? Oh, you're angry. Another girl gave Yu Guan a shove, pushing him onto a chair. The young sirs can scarcely be blamed for liking you. A man who's even prettier than a woman. If I saw this, I'd like you too. She gently lifted Yu Guan's chin, and Yu Guan subconsciously dodged back, accidentally falling back with the chair. His body was instantly covered in the shells of the seeds that the prostitutes had spat out, and his clean clothes were dyed by the spit and would not come out no matter how hard he tried. The more desperately that Yu Guan tried to pat himself clean, the more delighted the prostitutes became. Stop patting yourself. No matter how hard you try, you won't be clean. People like us were dirty from birth. Why bother pretending that you refuse to get close to us? You are the dirty ones, not him. Without the sound of the door opening, there were only blue skies and distant mountains outside. At the door was a young girl wearing court clothes with wide sleeves, and she had the bearing of a deity. For a moment, everyone was stunned. Aside from people like them, the only people who visited shady areas like these would be hedonistic sons of wealthy families. How could such a noble young miss appear? Her beautiful court clothes and elegant ornaments, it was likely that only someone that beautiful would be worthy of wearing them, right? Young Miss Yu Fu. Yu Guan looked at her in disbelief and wanted to step forward to greet her but was worried that his dirty clothes could affect Yu Fu. He could only salute her from a distance. It was not because of her status. It was just because she had suddenly appeared when he was looking for help. Young Miss Yu Fu. This name sounds familiar. One person wanted to step forward for a closer look, and Yu Guan immediately rushed forward to stop them. Don't run into young Miss Yu Fu. She has already been conferred the title of Princess Zhenjiang by His Majesty. She is not someone you can afford to offend. Princess Zhenjiang. They remembered. The daughter that Lord Marquis Gu was raising, was she not the one His Majesty had just conferred the title of princess? Was her name Yu Fu? Her name had been spread through the capital, and it was because of last year's palace banquet. At that time, she had been nicknamed the deity of the zither. You're messing with us. How could a princess come to a place like this? The prostitutes were quite uncertain, and Yu Fu raised her hand. The silver needles between her fingers were particularly eye-catching. How about you try it? The rumors said that Princess Zhenjiang was a disciple of the deity of medicine and was an immortal practitioner of poison from Immortal's Valley. If they really were pricked by her needles, what would happen? It was better to believe that there was than believe that there was not, and everyone retreated from Yu Guan's room. Yu Fu nodded to him, go and get changed first. There's no need to worry about me. Yu Guan awkwardly cupped his hands then retreated behind a screen. He quickly changed into clean clothes and came back out. While he was changing, Yu Fu looked over his room and came to an understanding. He was someone who liked cleanliness. Although his room was plainly furnished, it had a simple elegance to it. It did not look like it belonged to a lively actor. Instead, it looked like it belonged to a hermit. Unfortunately, the clean floor was made dirty and unseemly by the sunflower seed shells. Yu Guan did not have time to worry about this. Young Miss Yu Fu, did you come looking for this lowly one? Did something happen to the fourth young sir? You must have heard about third brother's personality, and there's no need for me to tell you what he hates the most. You should also know how fourth brother will be punished. I came to tell you in the future, please don't get close to fourth brother and lead him down a bad path. Yu Fu suddenly changed her tone. She had told off those prostitutes for him just a moment earlier, but now she said such a thing. For a moment, Yu Guan did not dare believe it, as he stood in place in a daze while at a complete loss. Based on his memories, Yu Fu was not like this. At that time, when she met him for the first time backstage, she was still surrounded by a childish aura. Although Marquis Gu treated her like a treasure, she did not end up spoiled. It was at that moment that he knew that Yu Fu was not like the average young miss from a wealthy family. She would not look down on him because of his status. She was just like Gu Wenqing. Right, Gu Wenqing. He would often mention Yu Fu to him, saying that Yu Fu was the one who was most supportive of him coming to visit. Why was it that Yu Fu's tune had now changed? Yu Guan was stunned for quite some time. Walking over to the table, he pulled out a chair and wiped it with a sleeve. "Young miss, please sit to talk. I was preparing to give this chair to the fourth young sir, so it should be relatively clean." He then used his feet to sweep away the seeds on the floor without any concern for his shoes getting dirty. When he finally managed to clean up a spot, Yu Fu quietly sat down on the chair. She wanted to hear how Yu Guan would respond. Being stared at by her young and imposing gaze, Yu Guan took a deep breath. After a long pause, he finally spoke, responding to young Miss Yu Fu. "This lowly one did not lead the fourth young sir down a bad path. Fourth young sir saved this lowly one's life, so this lowly one has always treated him well. How could I lead him down a bad path? Then why did you teach fourth brother acting? Fourth young sir is kind and thorough. He likes poetry and operas, and this lowly one happens to be an actor, thus he was taught a bit. Although he has learned, he does not go out to act, nor does he mingle with the sons of wealthy families. He is merely acting for fun. How could it be considered as learning something bad?" Yu Fu kept her eyes on him. At first, she was expressionless, but a smile slowly appeared. She was smiling. Yu Guan was so confused that he did not know what to say. What exactly was the meaning of this? Could it be that what she had said earlier was meant to instigate him? Yu Fu said with a smile, "Since you know that you did not lead fourth brother down a bad path, why is it that you don't dare to explain it clearly to third brother? Could it be that you have done something bad that won't allow you to raise your head in front of third brother?" "Sure enough. No, I have always stayed away from trouble and have not done anything improper. When fourth young sir saved me, I happened to be getting attacked by two playboys and could not get away. At that time, I thought things through. If they were going to force themselves on me, I would protect my cleanliness even if it meant dying." Yu Guan unconsciously began defending himself, but his voice became smaller and smaller. "But my status is low, so how could I be worthy of speaking to third young sir? If not for fourth young sir not looking down on me, I would not have the right to speak with fourth young sir or young miss. There are no people who are naturally of lower status than others. I've heard fourth brother bring it up before that you had no choice but to join an acting troupe after your family was ruined and only act to eke out a living. Seeing you live here and get pushed around by those women, it's clear that you are not the same as them." When Yu Guan had been getting bullied by them, he had been able to keep himself composed, but for some reason, when he heard Yu Fu's words, tears began to well up in his eyes. This would not do. Men should not cry so easily. He could not allow Yu Fu to look down on him. He turned around to regain his composure before quickly turning back. "I am just a lowly actor. If I lived on my own, it would make others feel jealous. Fourth young sir also wanted to arrange for me to live somewhere in the city, but I was worried that people in the city would notice him coming to visit me, and that would ruin his reputation. That's why I decided to come and live in this sort of place outside the city." So that was the case. It was no wonder why he did not fall so low with his position as a lead actor in his troupe. Yu Fu stood up and said, "Yu Guan, do you want to return to the manor with me right now and explain things to head general and third brother? It's possible that if you personally explain, you might be trusted a little more. More importantly, could it be that you don't hope to be accepted by them, so that you and fourth brother can meet openly in the future?" Openly. This lowly one absolutely does not dare ask for that much. This lowly one wishes to go with young Miss Yu Fu. As long as this lowly one can help reduce fourth young sir's punishment, this lowly one is willing to do anything. He turned back to look at his room and brought along his coin purse. Yu Fu said, "I came out in a hurry and did not bring anyone with me. The door to your house was broken down, so it would be best to bring along any important items to keep from losing them." Yu Guan smiled freely. "There's no need. What important matters are there? It's nothing more than some worldly possessions. I always keep the cloth that fourth young sir gave me on hand. There's nothing else of importance. In an instant, Yu Fu was moved by his words. He, the one that Gu Hanamo considered a lowly actor, actually viewed money as something so unimportant and was willing to abandon it all for Gu Wenqing's sake. Just how sincere of a friend was he? It was no wonder Gu Wenqing refused to give up on coming to visit him. To have one confidant in life, one can die without regrets. For fourth brother to have a friend like you is very fortunate for him. Yu Guan smiled. No, this lowly one having a friend like fourth young sir is this lowly one's good fortune. Stepping over the fallen door, the two walked out of the building and left without looking back. The entrance to the small and simple room was left open, reflecting the open mountains and cloudless sky. It just remained there, waiting for its owner's return. Has the head general and the others returned? The horse stopped in front of the manor, and Yu Fu casually asked the soldier standing out front. That person replied, they returned a quarter of an hour ago. They are now dealing with the fourth young sir at the main hall. Young miss, come in quickly. Yu Fu waved to Yu Guan, and the two entered the main hall's courtyard one after the other. The sound of the cane striking flesh was familiar and shocking. This is bad. Yu Fu immediately walked in the direction of the main hall. There, she saw Gu Huaijiang seated at the head seat, and everyone else was present. Sun Qi and Tian Shu had probably returned to their small courtyard. When it came to the familial matters of Marquis Gu's manor, it was not convenient for them to meddle, nor did they want to meddle. Kneeling on the ground was Gu Wenqing, while Gu Hanamo was personally administering the punishment without holding back in the slightest. Hold it! Yu Fu rushed forward and saluted Gu Huaijiang, head general. Why must fourth brother be beaten? Gu Huaijiang heaved a sigh. He was visiting a place where shady people gather and went to learn acting rather than think about how to improve. He damaged the reputation of Marquis Gu's manor, so this is the punishment that he should bear. Yu Fu, I know that you worry about your fourth brother, but the sons of Marquis Gu's manor have always been raised in this way. He cannot be the exception. The previous time, he had let Gu Wenqing off without investigating further. This time, his demeanor was even more severe. Not only was Gu Wenqing meeting with an actor, but he was also caught in the act of learning to act by Gu Hanamo. As the dignified young sir of Marquis Gu's manor, how could he go and become an actor, someone who exists to entertain people? Gu Shubai waved to her. Yu Fu, come to eldest brother. Father only punished him with 20 strikes. It can't be considered much, and he can endure it. There's no need for you to worry. Be good and come sit. How about it? Sit around and watch fourth brother get beaten? I can't do it. Yu Fu did not even think about it and refuted Gu Shubai's offer, and the latter was a little shocked. This was the first time that Yu Fu had opposed him, but for some odd reason, he rejoiced. She really had grown up. She now had her own views. Yu Fu said to Gu Hanamo, head general, eldest brother, second brother, third brother, I brought Yu Guan with me. Please listen to his explanation before deciding on whether or not to punish fourth brother, all right? Yu Guan. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi whispered to each other. They did not think that Yu Fu would come up with such a good idea. But it did not sound too promising. Was she certain that Gu Hanamo would not get angry upon seeing Yu Guan? Yu Guan walked in through the door and performed a very proper salute. Gu Wenqing, who had remained still this entire time, finally glanced up at him. The latter gave him a reassuring look. It was the same look as when he was being taken away by Gu Hanamo. This humble citizen is called Yu Guan, and I am a performer in Huali troupe. Greetings, Lord Marquis, eldest young sir, and the other young sirs. Gu Huaijiang had heard this name before, and he had seen perform on stage, but this was the first time that he had seen him face to face. Taking a closer look, he was a young man with delicate features. It could be a result of him playing the female parts that his face appeared needlessly caked in makeup. His long and narrow eyes were feminine, but his gaze was straightforward. It did not look like it belonged to someone engaged in shady business. The salute that he had performed earlier had been very proper, and he spoke without any sense of inferiority. For the time being, Gu Huaijiang did not feel repulsed by him. He waited to see what he would say next. He kneeled next to Gu Wenqing. "Lord Marquis, please reconsider and do not punish fourth young sir. It was all this lowly citizen's fault." Yu Fu let out a faint sigh and wondered to herself what was going on. Had they not agreed that neither he nor Gu Wenqing had done anything wrong? Why was it that he placed the blame on himself now that he was in front of Gu Huaijiang? This could not possibly resolve the root of the problem. Yu Guan seemed to realize something and straightened his back. No, this lowly citizen did not do anything wrong. Would Lord Marquis please reconsider? This lowly citizen and fourth young sir had a pure friendship and have never done anything improper. Fourth young sir just likes poetry and opera, and this lowly citizen was willing to teach him to repay the debt of having my life saved. Aside from learning to act, this lowly citizen has not enticed him into seeing anyone improper. This is without mentioning that fourth young sir is a dignified young sir of a noble family, and even this lowly citizen feels unworthy of being his acquaintance. Gu Hanamo said, "Just by learning to act, you have caused him great harm. As the young sir of an influential family, how could he possibly learn acting? This is a lowly profession that is looked down upon by all. No, what third young sir says is wrong." Yu Guan suddenly stood up. His delicate frame endured Gu Hanmo's oppressive stare, and he did his best to remain steady. Nobody knew just how much courage he had summoned to dare to speak up in front of these people. He persisted and said, "This lowly one is an actor and am indeed of low standing, but fourth young sir is merely learning to act for fun. It is not for the sake of becoming an actor. What is there that is improper about it? Gambling is not noble, but is there anything wrong with playing some dice with family over the new year? Drinking is not noble, but what is wrong with enjoying a few drinks while celebrating a joyous matter? Killing is not tolerated by Eastern Ling's laws, but if the enemy ruler is killed on the battlefield to protect one's family and country, what wrong was committed?" Yu Guan spoke without pausing for a breath, and Yu Fu looked at him in admiration. Seeing Gu Hanmo's cold face slightly stunned, she became even happier. When it came to some biases, third brother had to change a little, otherwise, not only would it make him bitter, but it would also cause Gu Wenqing to lose his best friend. Finding a confidant was hard, and she would insist on Gu Wenqing being able to keep this friend. Gu Wenqing looked at Yu Guan in a daze. He never thought that he would see someone usually meek become so impassioned. For Yu Guan to be able to understand this, he was happier than anyone. Seeing everyone look at him in shock, Yu Guan became a little embarrassed and once again cupped his hands toward Gu Huaijiang. "This lowly citizen has been impolite. Marquis Gu's manor is full of heroes who have shed blood on the battlefield and naturally understands better than this lowly citizen. This lowly citizen should not have used that as an example. Would Lord Marquis please not take offense?" The hall fell silent. After a long pause, Gu Huaijiang spoke in a heavy voice, "It can't be helped." He initially thought that Yu Guan was a normal actor who had selfishly wanted to deceive Gu Wenqing and have Gu Wenqing to himself. Looking at him now, he knew that this was not the case. Just by looking at the way that he was dressed, with his simple yet refined clothes, and hearing the resolute tone of his voice, he knew that he was someone with integrity. In the end, Gu Wenqing was a child raised in Marquis Gu's manor. He would not stray from the proper path and become friends with people who harbored wicked thoughts. Yu Fu took advantage of this timing to speak. Head General, I just went outside the city to fetch Yu Guan, and guess what happened? When third brother and the others went, they kicked down Yu Guan's door, and a group of girls was gathered around him and insulting him, faulting him for being too clean and being unwilling to associate with them. That group only left after I arrived. Who knows just how much Yu Guan would have suffered if I had not gone. Everyone immediately knew what sort of people those girls were upon hearing Yu Fu's words, as they had heard a bit about Yu Guan living in a shady area. Gu Hanamo furrowed his brow, then looked at Yu Guan, who was standing respectfully near the entrance to the hall. The look in his eyes no longer held any of the previous contempt. Instead, it looked a little apologetic. If not for him kicking down the door, Yu Guan would not have been subjected to such humiliation. Gu Wenqing cupped his hands and said, Father, although Yu Guan lives in that sort of a place, he has never done that sort of thing. If that was not the case, how could Sun have saved his life back then? Gu Huaijiang nodded. Father has heard about this. There were some people who tried to force Yu Guan to do something against his principles, and that was why you saved him. This was initially a good thing, and since your conduct has been proper, Father will not stop you from continuing to visit him. Gu Wenqing was so happy that he forgot himself and looked toward Yu Guan. The latter looked to be in disbelief, but he continued to look at Gu Huaijiang with a gaze that was full of reverence. He had previously heard Gu Wenqing speak about this Marquis Gu. Who knew that not only was he adept at killing enemies on the battlefield, but he was also so open-minded. Gu Huaijiang stood up and said, It's just that the recent situation at Marquis Gu's manor has not been very stable. There have been some abnormal happenings, but they do not matter much. In the future, he looked at Yu Guan, it's not that this general detests you, as this general finds you to have integrity and do admire you, but your status has yet to be resolved. Head General, I have an idea. Yu Fu looked at him with a smile, her eyes shining strangely. Who knew what idea she had in mind? Forget it, he would just go with it. Gu Huaijiang helplessly shook his head. When he passed by Gu Hanmo's side, he patted him on the shoulder. When he left, Gu Hanmo tossed the cane that he held to the side, and Gu Yi hastily caught it. Since Father has agreed, there's nothing else to say. Saying this, he left without looking back. Gu Yi mimicked his tone, paying great attention to detail. Since Father has agreed, there's nothing else to say. Ha ha ha. Since Gu Hanmo had already left, Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu also stood up. They never had as strong of an opinion as Gu Hanmo. Now that there was approval from Gu Huaijiang and a great deal of support from Yu Fu, they were perfectly happy to grant her wish. With the older brothers and elders having already left, the younger ones were freed from needing to be restrained and immediately became lively. Gu Xiang patted Yu Guan's shoulder, and Yu Guan's entire body swayed, nearly sustaining an internal injury. Gu Xiang hastily helped support him. Apologies, we brothers have quite a bit of strength from training in martial arts, and I forgot that your body is frilier. Don't take it to heart. In truth, third brother is soft-hearted but has a sharp tongue. I can tell that he's already changed his attitude. Yu Guan gratefully waved to him. It's fine. It's just that I was too nervous earlier, so my legs are feeling a little weak. To be able to keep fourth young sir from being struck even one additional time makes me rejoice. I do not dare ask the third young sir to change. Gu Yi helped Gu Wenqing up from the floor. Fourth brother was caned 15 times. Third brother did not hold back in the slightest. It would be best to quickly call for an imperial physician to take a look. No, third brother did hold back. Gu Wenqing did not seem to be in pain, standing up on his own. If third brother really did not hold back, I would be completely unable to stand up right now. He really does have a soft heart but a sharp tongue. He looked furious, but he really could not bring himself to do it. Yu Guan had delicate skin and had never experienced such a serious injury. Upon seeing Gu Wenqing's injury, he was startled. His voice had changed from his nervousness. We should help him back to his room first and dress the wound, right? Yu Fu was concerned and said, "Fourth brother, are you able to hold out?" "Don't worry, I can." "Since you can, don't rush to apply the medicine. Go and visit third brother in his room first." Yu Fu's words shocked everyone. Thinking carefully, they understood the deeper meaning behind this. This was true. Gu Hanmo's prejudices did not form overnight. Even if he saw today that Yu Guan was not the type of person that he had imagined, he still could not change his attitude. It would be better to have Gu Wenqing go and advise him. Gu Hanmo was worried about his younger brothers and would surely be swayed. In the future, Gu Wenqing and Yu Guan would be able to meet without any worries. This would settle matters once and for all. Gu Wenqing said, "Yu Fu, many thanks to you for what you have done today. If not for you, who knows how things would have ended. I will go and see third brother right now." It's just that Yu Fu knew what he was worried about. "Don't worry. I have already made arrangements for Yu Guan's matter. Go quickly." Gu Xiang shoved Gu Yi. "What are you in a daze for? We're helping fourth brother get there. Letting him go to third brother on his own, he might get beaten to death without anyone knowing." Yu Fu burst out laughing. Gu Wenqing wanted to raise a hand to hit Gu Xiang but weakly lowered it. "You two are just going to take advantage of this time while I am hurt to bully me. In a few days, it will be you guys who will suffer." Yu Guan watched the three brothers depart, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "Ever since seeing the third young sir at my house, fourth young sir has been extremely uneasy. Now, he's finally smiling." This was not the end of the matter. Yu Guan's preparations were the important part. Yu Fu thought for a bit then said, "Yu Guan, do you perform because you like performing, or do you do it because you have no other choice? Acting is a lowly profession. If one had a choice, who would choose to do it? I have earned a bit of money from my troupe and have considered quitting. However, I am still young and worried that I will not have enough for when I am older. That's why I don't dare quit." Yu Fu understood what he meant. If there was another choice, he would not want to be an actor. Since that's the case, why not do a small bit of business? Being a businessman is a proper job. What do you think? Yu Guan smiled bitterly. "I have never done business, nor do I have the capital to do it. How could I manage?" Yu Fu said, "I can provide you with the capital. If you haven't done any business before, I can have the people in the manor's treasury teach you. Marquis Gu's manor has many businesses in the capital, and there are plenty of people with knowledge in various businesses." Yu Guan looked at her in a daze. He had decided that he should not cry so easily, but he could not stop the tears from welling up. But how could this lowly one be worthy of receiving this much support from young Miss Yu Fu? It's truly embarrassing. Yu Fu looked up at the sky. With everything that had happened today, it was already starting to get dark. You just need to say whether you want to or not. There's no need to think too much. Once you have earned the money, you can repay me in the future. You know that with my title and estate as a princess, I won't miss this bit of money." Yu Guan hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. He lifted the hem of his robe and dropped to his knees to give his thanks. Yu Fu personally helped him up. In the future, there's no need for such formalities. You are fourth brother's friend, thus you are also my friend. It's already late today, and your house outside the city has no door, so it can't be lived in. I will have someone accompany you back to tidy up your things. You can stay in an empty room in the manor for tonight and look for an appropriate place to stay tomorrow." Yu Guan said, there is a small place near Marquis Gu's manor that fourth young sir bought for me to live in. At that time, I refused for fear of third young sir finding out. That place can be lived in. That's even better. Guards, escort Yu Guan outside the city. Now that everything had finally been handled, Yu Fu's stomach rumbled with hunger. Holding her belly, she headed toward Sun Qi's courtyard. It was just starting to get dark, so the lanterns next to the path had not yet been lit. Yu Fu was the only person walking along the path. She quietly spoke to herself, "I'll go and grab a meal and chat with Master about what happened in the palace today. I wonder if Master liked the poached chicken with sticky rice more, or if he liked the oil-drenched smoked duck more." Of course, it was the chicken. A person suddenly walked out from the side holding a glazed hydrangea lantern, which quickly illuminated the path. Yu Fu looked up and saw that it was Gu Shubai. He seemed to have just taken a bath and had changed into light blue clothes that he wore at home. His hair was loosely tied up with a white cloth, giving him a relaxed appearance. Getting closer, she could smell a familiar scent. How strange, this scent was really familiar, but she could not remember where she had smelled it before. "Eldest brother, how did you know that Master liked the chicken?" The two walked toward Sun Qi's courtyard side by side, and Gu Shubai said, "It's because Deity of Medicine ate 2 plates of the poached chicken but only ate 1 plate of the duck." Yu Fu was surprised, but Master ate so much in the palace today. Even Eunuch Gao, who was keeping his eyes on him the entire time, could not keep track of what Master ate. How can eldest brother remember so clearly? Emperor Ning was worried that Sun Qi would have a hard time digesting it all given his age, thus he had Eunuch Gao keep an eye on him. If he showed any signs of being unable to digest it, he would immediately send for the imperial physicians. Eunuch Gao's eyes were sore from keeping his eyes on him for the entire day, as he watched plate after plate of meat was brought up to take the place of empty plates, but Sun Qi remained in high spirits. Not only did he not show any signs of discomfort, but he looked happier and happier the more he ate. That was why Eunuch Gao slacked off toward the end. What struggles with digestion? If a normal person ate this much, they would have died from being bloated. Sun Qi did not die, which meant that he would not have trouble with digestion. When it came to an immortal's matters, there was no need for him to worry. Gu Shubai smiled with a bit of delight. "A day as a master is like a life as a father. To try and curry favor with my great father-in-law is something that I should do. How could I not pay attention to these small matters?" All right, this son-in-law paid more attention than her, the daughter. Yu Fu smirked, and the two slowly walked along the dark path with their lantern. The faint scent from his body continued to remain in her nose. A subtle fragrance floats under the moon at dusk. Yu Fu suddenly remembered this line of poetry and was shocked to remember what the scent was. "Eldest brother, you used my bath beans." Was this not the smell of her bath beans? Last time, Kun Wushang had brought her a box, and there was just that one box. It was the smell of Immortal's Valley. After that, the second prince also had people bring some, but the smell was wrong, thus she gave them to Su Yunyan. Gu Shubai said, "Deity of Medicine and Tian Shu know that you like the smell of these bath beans and brought you a lot this time. You will be able to use them for quite some time. I used the ones that Kun Wushang brought last time. You aren't allowed to use those anymore." Yu Fu used the ones sent by Kun Wushang when she bathed, allowing her skin to be touched by something given by Kun Wushang. No matter how he thought about it, it felt inappropriate, so it was best to take it away as soon as possible. Yu Fu's little face instantly turned red. He had actually used her leftover bath beans. "Right, I heard that you directed someone to bring Yu Guan back to live inside the city." Gu Shubai recalled the day's events and could not help but smile. I never knew that our Yufu was so capable and would be able to resolve a difficult situation with just a few moves. If it had been him, today's problem might not have been resolved so easily. Yufu was only 13 years old, yet she was already very bold and decisive. Everyone said that it was as if she was truly Gu Huaijiang's daughter, but Gu Shubai did not agree, feeling that Yufu had not shown all of her cards. If she grew up, she would surely soar to great heights with the wind. Princess Danyang often said that Yufu was not worthy of him, but what he feared the most was that there would come a day when he would not be worthy of Yufu. Eldest brother, what are you thinking about? Yufu tugged at his sleeve. Did you hear what I just said? What do you think my arrangements for Yuguan? Gu Shubai returned to the present and gently smiled. They are indeed good, but how could you give him your own money to serve as capital? Why not? Your money is part of your dowry. In the future, you will need to bring it with you when you marry me. How can it be used so carelessly? Very well, he was going to take this chance to make fun of her. Gu Shubai continued, it would have been better to give him my money. Yufu was confused and said, going by what eldest brother said, what difference is there between your money and my money? Are they not the same? That's right. Gu Shubai quietly chuckled. He kept his voice down, but it sounded very nice. All of my belongings are yours. That's why you can use them as you like. Yufu froze, as her hand was suddenly held tight. The warmth of his palm seemed to be able to melt the snow and ice. She flipped her hand over and held his hand. The two quietly continued along, with the darkness following behind them. One tall and one short, the two shadows stretched out quite a distance. Sun Qi was in the middle of eating his dinner, holding a chicken leg and eating it with vigor. Tian Shu had already finished eating and was sipping tea off to the side, waiting to tidy up the bowls and chopsticks. Suddenly, he saw Sun Qi raise his head. Prepare 2 more bowls and chopsticks. Going by the sound of their footsteps, they have come empty-handed and on an empty stomach. Humph. He did not mind that Yufu had come on an empty stomach, but he quite minded the other one. This in spite of the fact that he was eating food provided by Marquis Gu's manor. Who came? Tian Shu looked out at the courtyard but did not see anyone. It was one thing for Master to hear footsteps from such a distance, but that he could tell what they were holding and the state of their stomachs. Understood, I will go immediately. A long while after the bowls and chopsticks were brought out, Tian Shu was finally able to hear footsteps. One set seemed to belong to Yufu. Not long later, 2 figures appeared outside the courtyard's entrance. One was Yufu, and the other was Gu Shubai. Yufu, I heard about everything that happened earlier. You did very well. Tian Shu led them inside, and Yufu winked at him. It was a result of Master's teaching me well. Gu Shubai immediately saw the bowls and chopsticks laid out on the table, and Sun Qi continued to eat. Don't flatter Master. The bowl and plate have been prepared for quite some time. Are you worried that Master won't let you eat? Hee, of course, I'm not worried that Master won't let me eat. She was worried that her master would not let Gu Shubai eat. Yufu cheerfully pulled Gu Shubai over to sit down. New dishes had just been brought out, and a male servant stepped forward to remove the lid from the plate. A fragrant smell filled the air. Gu Shubai looked over the dishes on the table then said, the poached chicken at today's banquet was extremely good, and this one of the younger generation asked the Imperial Kitchen to write down the recipe. The cooks in the manor will be able to prepare them starting tomorrow. At that time, I will personally bring it over and ask Deity of Medicine to have a taste. Poached chicken with sticky rice. Hidden beneath Sun Qi's long eyebrows, his eyes suddenly lit up. This brat was quite reliable, knowing to be filial to the elderly. Tian Shu heard this and immediately knew that it was something that Sun Qi liked. For Gu Shubai to go and ask the imperial kitchen for the recipe, such dedication was hard to come by. He lifted his sword and said, "I'm done eating and am going to go and look for your third brother to train. Master, enjoy your meal." For some reason, when the three of them sat together, it was surprisingly harmonious, as if they were family, while he had become the outsider. Thus he simply decided to leave and avoid becoming an eyesore. Having eaten his fill, Sun Chi suddenly said, "Though I was quite reluctant, your engagement has been decided. Marquis Gu and Emperor Ning are both healthy, so it is time for your senior disciple brother and me to leave." "What? Why is Master in such a rush to leave? Can you not stay for a little while longer?" Yu Fu urgently tried to persuade him to stay. Sun Chi clearly liked Eastern Ling, especially the local architecture and customs. Of course, the great food was even more important. She thought that this would make Sun Chi so happy that he would forget about home, but who knew that he would bring up leaving so soon? Sun Chi's beard trembled, and he snuck a glance at Gu Shubai. "Master also wants to keep you company for a little while longer and teach you some more poisons. Unfortunately, Eastern Ling will be going to war, and it's inconvenient for Master to stay here." "War?" Sun Chi's words were clearly not just random nonsense, and Gu Shubai's heart chilled, as he immediately lowered his chopsticks. "May I ask Deity of Medicine to tell us, what war are you talking about?" Eastern Ling was peaceful and auspicious. Emperor Ning had already recovered from his illness, and the situation in court was stable, so where would a war come from? Sun Chi said, "I am talking about the border. If Western Kun and Eastern Ling start fighting, it will get in the way of my return to Immortals Valley. Naturally, it does not matter to me, but your second senior disciple is just a mortal. Moreover, I can't quite get used to seeing the flames of war." Chapter 217 Princess and Family, Part 4. As he said this, he waved his hand in front of his nose with a look of great disdain. Gu Shubai furrowed his brow and said, "Western Kun is ambitious and has always coveted our Eastern Ling's border region. Sure enough, them sending people as a peaceful envoy had a hidden objective. But how is it that you know that they will take up arms?" Sun Chi snorted, "Heaven's secrets must not be exposed. You just need to know that I wouldn't lie to you. With that, things have been decided. In 3 days, we will be returning to Immortals Valley." Yu Fu tugged on his sleeve beneath the table, and Gu Shubai quickly recovered. Sun Chi had deliberately revealed that there would be a war to allow them some time to prepare. The Deity of Medicine truly said that. "Father, that is indeed the case." In the main hall, Gu Shubai relayed what Sun Chi had said to Gu Huaijiang, and the latter fell deep into thought for a prolonged period of time. With his outer clothes draped on his shoulders, he paced back and forth for a long time. "This is bad. When Western Kuen's special envoy came last time, Kuen Wushang did a number of improper things, so the court has been a bit more vigilant. But a few days earlier, Western Kuen's special envoy sent a letter of credence, saying that it was for the sake of repairing relations between the two countries and that they specially sent a princess to solidify relations through marriage. His Majesty was absolutely elated. The princess is already on her way. If I say that Western Kun will launch an attack on our border at a time like this, who would believe it? Does father not believe what Deity of Medicine said?" "That's not the case." Gu Huaijiang said, "Deity of Medicine is very certain, so it can't be fake. Also, whether it's him allowing Tian Shu to teach his unique training methods to the members of the manor, or him accepting the engagement between you and Yu Fu, or him helping treat His Majesty's poisoning, he has done plenty to prove that he has been helping us this entire time. Today's words are also no exception." Gu Shubai nodded and said, "Son also thinks this way. It's just that if the court members truly believe that Western Kun wants reconciliation, there's no way for us to reinforce the border with more troops. If that's the case, there's nothing that we can do with this information. Gu Huaijiang let out a long sigh. It's one thing with the members of court, but His Majesty is the more important. He wholeheartedly hopes for Western Kun and Eastern Ling to be on peaceful terms and does not want to see the flames of war burn once more. Without proof of Western Kun deploying troops brought before him, he will not allow us to deploy troops first. He thought for a bit, then quickly said, "How about this? Order the border guards to keep a close eye on Western Kun's movements. As soon as they feel that something is off, immediately send a report back with haste." "Yes, father." That night, Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai were unable to sleep soundly. On the battlefield, in just a split second, blood could flow like a river, as the corpses of civilians and soldiers piled up like mountains. They did not dare be negligent in the slightest, as they constantly thought about the situation at the border and which city they would counterattack from. This continued until the sun came up. Gu Huaijiang was getting old and could not fight off the need to close his eyes. Gu Shubai, however, opened his eyes and lifted his blanket, walking out of his courtyard while it was still early in the morning and seeing the sun rise above the treetops. It was bright but not so much that it was dazzling. It was warm but not too hot. This was true of the morning sun, and it was true of Eastern Ling, as it would continue to steadily prosper. He stretched his arms and suddenly saw a figure leaning back at the top of a tree. They also seemed to be looking at the scenery of the rising sun. Looking more closely, it looked like Gu Hanmo's figure. "Third brother." The person at the top of the tree turned his head. "Eldest brother, why have you woken up so early?" Gu Hanmo descended the tree in a blur and landed next to him. The area under his eyes was faintly bruised. Gu Shubai wanted to point this out, but Gu Hanmo said, "Eldest brother, the area under your eyes is bruised. Did you not sleep well last night?" He said, "Fourth brother came to plead for forgiveness yesterday before getting his injuries treated. He said a lot and said that Yu Guan is a good friend. He said that they benefit a great deal from their interactions." "Eldest brother, do you know what I was thinking about?" "What is it?" "I was thinking that I don't have any friends, so I don't understand his feelings." Gu Shubai looked at him in shock, never thinking that he would say such a thing. It seemed to be full of regret and jealousy. Jealousy. He had always placed all of his focus on training and treated family warmly with a cold expression. He also had no outside friends. Gu Shubai always thought that he did not need friends, otherwise, given his status, there would be plenty of people who would want to be friends with him. It turned out, he also wanted to have friends. Gu Shubai had helped Gu Huaijiang raise his younger brothers for many years, and this was the first time that he did not know what to say to console Gu Hanmo. After a long pause, he finally said, "No, you have a friend. Isn't Tianshu your friend?" Chapter 218 She Really Was a Princess, Part 5. First thing in the morning at the government office of Linen, a din of discontent filled the air. Situated in the capital and directly under the emperor's nose, the government office was rarely ever lively, so why was there such a loud fuss today? Prefect Shi Menxing, who lived in the rear courtyard of the government office, put on his official clothes while ordering a subordinate to go out and take a look at the situation. Not long later, the attendant came back to report, replying to Lord Prefect, "There are 2 women wanting to file a complaint." "Some women want to file a complaint." "The women of my Eastern Ling have always placed emphasis on remaining composed. Since a woman dared to come and file a complaint, it must be some big case. Quickly open the court." Shi Menxing hastily rushed toward the courtroom, but the attendant stopped him and said, "My lord, please do not rush. Those 2 women look extremely familiar." This lowly one was afraid of making a mistake and asked a few questions. "Sure enough, they are from the brothel outside the city." "Brothel?" Xing furrowed his brow and hesitated for a moment. Prostitution is already considered illegal. Do they themselves not know this? If this official questions them about it in court, regardless of what complaints they might have, they will also be punished. If that's the case, it would be better for you to have them quickly leave. The attendant said with a bit of difficulty. This lowly one also said this, but the two of them refused to leave. They said that their caretaker is abducting young girls and forcing them into slavery. My lord, should this be tried or not? Xing had already decided to go back but stopped upon hearing mention of slavery. If people being pressed into slavery is truly happening under the ruler's nose, this official will definitely need to perform a proper trial. Come, let's go and take a look. Ordered Dash. The attendants stood on both sides of the room and held their long clubs, forcefully slamming them on the ground. This scared the two women from entering the courtroom. Sneakily glancing up, they saw a large board hung at the head of the hall with a lord wearing a brocade robe. To the two sides, there were people holding large signs. The one on the left read silence and the one on the right read recuse. Who is entering the courtroom? What is your grievance? Quickly come in and report. The gavel slammed down, and the two people held each other in fear while slowly entering the courtroom. The two kneeled near the entrance of the hall. One was beautiful and charming, while the other looked gentle but troubled, and both were dressed in flowing dresses. It was immediately clear that they were not women from upright families. Xing furrowed his brow and slammed his gavel once more. Impudence. At your age, you are no longer young girls. How can you come and voice grievances of young girls being abducted? The charming woman said, replying to my lord, we were indeed abducted. She was abducted when she was 12, and I was abducted when I was 11. The other woman pulled out two unknown items from her sleeve and brought them up with both hands. Yesterday, a noble person said that my lord would know how to handle things upon seeing these. Xing stood up and looked down. He saw that she was holding a small piece of gold and a silver needle. The piece of gold was finer than what he usually saw. He did not even have something this fine at his private residence. It seemed that they truly did meet a noble person. As for that silver needle, he felt that it was extremely familiar but did not know what it was. Noble person. Speak clearly. What exactly happened? 1 hour later, the personal assistant hastily led a group of attendants out of the government office. They were headed in the direction of the palace. The people who lived there were all of exceptional nobility. Were they going there to catch a thief or something? The soldier said, replying to young Miss. Based on what the assistant said, the old woman that was struck by young Miss Poison Needle was sent to the medical clinic. She has already been given medicine and is unconscious. They left and went to the government office while she was unconscious. They were hoping that the old woman could be brought to justice. Yu Fu clapped. This is even better. I thought that the two of them would refuse to save that old woman to get revenge, but it seems that the two of them have kindness in their hearts. Here, go tell the assistant. The assistant hastily rushed back from Marquis Gu's manor. The two women were still kneeling in the middle of the courtroom and were a little panicked. He whispered into Xing's ear, and Xing quickly sat up with reverence, repeatedly nodding and tossing a sign stick down. Guards, quickly go and capture that old woman who has been abducting girls and lock her in prison. As for the two of you, Xing stood up and walked down, personally handing the piece of gold and silver needle to the women. You two are lucky to have met Princess Zhenjiang. Princess is sympathetic. From here on, you will no longer need to work in a brothel. She really was Princess Zhenjiang. The two women exchanged a look, smiling so joyfully that tears spilled forth. The previous night, they had heard the girls that lived nearby say that a girl claiming to be Princess Zhenjiang had appeared at Yu Guan's residence and taken him away. It turned out that she really was a princess. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.